Have you ever wondered what it would be like to step back in time and witness creatures that make today's most fearsome predators look like house pets? Well, buckle up, because we're about to journey to one of the most incredible fossil sites on Earth, where ancient giants once ruled both land and sea in what we now call the borderlands between Texas and Mexico. The Aguja Formation isn't just another pile of rocks sitting in the desert. This geological treasure trove represents something absolutely mind-blowing, a complete ancient ecosystem frozen in time from around 80 million years ago. We're talking about a world so alien and magnificent that it would make Jurassic Park look like a petting zoo. Picture this: North America split completely in half by a massive inland ocean, with tropical coastlines stretching as far as the eye could see. Massive crocodilians longer than school buses lurked in shallow waters, while armored dinosaurs the size of tanks wandered through lush forests. Overhead, pterosaurs with wingspans rivaling small aircraft soared through humid skies, and beneath the waves, prehistoric sharks and marine reptiles engaged in an underwater arms race that puts any nature documentary to shame. What makes the Aguja Formation absolutely extraordinary is how it captures this entire lost world in stunning detail. Unlike many fossil sites that give us glimpses of either land or sea creatures, Aguja preserves both terrestrial and marine environments together. This happened because the ancient shoreline constantly shifted back and forth, creating perfect conditions for fossilization that scientists can only dream about finding elsewhere. But here's where it gets really interesting. The creatures we've discovered in these rocks weren't just random animals living their lives. They were part of interconnected ecosystems more complex and dynamic than anything we see today. Giant predatory fish shared the same waters with enormous sea turtles, while on land, duck-billed dinosaurs grazed alongside heavily armored herbivores, all while massive theropods stalked through the underbrush. The story of how we discovered these incredible fossils reads like an adventure novel. Picture paleontologists working under the blazing Texas sun, carefully excavating bones that haven't seen daylight since the age of dinosaurs. Every brushstroke reveals new secrets about life on Earth when our planet was dramatically different from today. What's truly remarkable is the level of preservation we find in Aguja rocks. We're not just talking about scattered bone fragments here and there. We're finding complete skeletons, preserved skin impressions, and even fossilized stomach contents that tell us exactly what these ancient creatures ate for their last meals. Some specimens are so well preserved that we can study the microscopic details of their bone structure and figure out how fast they grew, how long they lived, and even what the climate was like when they were alive. The marine environment of the Aguja Formation was absolutely teeming with life. Imagine crystal-clear tropical waters filled with straight-shelled cephalopods called ammonites, some growing to enormous sizes. These weren't your typical ocean dwellers. They were sophisticated predators with complex shells and tentacles that could snatch prey from the water column with lightning speed. Swimming alongside these ammonites were sharks that would make modern great whites look tiny. We're talking about predators with teeth designed for crushing rather than slicing, capable of taking down prey that we can barely imagine. Some of these ancient sharks had such specialized hunting strategies that they could ambush victims from the sandy sea floor, while others cruised the open ocean as apex predators with no natural enemies. But the sharks weren't the only terrifying residents of these ancient seas. Ray-like creatures with saw-like rostrums patrolled the shallow waters, using their weaponized snouts to slash through schools of fish. These weren't just random evolutionary experiments. They were perfectly adapted killing machines that dominated their ecological niches for millions of years. The diversity of fish species in the Aguja Formation is staggering. We found everything from tiny bottom dwellers that buried themselves in sand to massive predatory species that could swallow smaller fish whole. Some of these ancient fish were so successful that their descendants are still swimming in our oceans today, virtually unchanged after 80 million years of evolution. What makes studying these marine fossils particularly challenging is that cartilaginous fish like sharks and rays rarely fossilize completely. Their skeletons are made of cartilage rather than bone, which means we usually only find their teeth. But those teeth tell incredible stories about how these predators lived, what they ate, and how they evolved over millions of years. The transition zone between marine and terrestrial environments in the Aguja Formation reveals some of the most fascinating creatures ever discovered. This is where we encounter animals that were equally at home in water and on land. Massive crocodilians that could hunt both aquatic and terrestrial prey with equal efficiency. These weren't your average crocodiles. We're talking about monsters that could grow longer than modern saltwater crocodiles, with skulls designed for crushing the bones of dinosaurs. Some specimens show evidence of incredibly long lifespans, possibly living for half a century or more while continuously growing throughout their lives. The turtle species found in Aguja rocks range from land-dwelling giants with shells thick enough to stop most predators, to early sea turtles that were already showing the specialized adaptations we see in modern marine species. Some of these ancient turtles had such unusual skull shapes that paleontologists initially thought they might be looking at completely different types of animals. Moving inland from the coastal environments, we encounter some of the most spectacular dinosaur fossils ever found in North America. The herbivorous dinosaurs of the Aguja Formation represent a diverse community of plant eaters, each specialized for different types of vegetation and different ecological niches. The duck-billed dinosaurs, or hadrosaurs, were particularly abundant in this ancient ecosystem. These weren't simple, generic herbivores. They were sophisticated animals with complex social behaviors, elaborate head crests used for communication, and dental systems more advanced than those of most modern mammals. Some species had hundreds of teeth arranged in batteries that could process tough plant material with incredible efficiency. What's particularly fascinating about Aguja hadrosaurs is their diversity. We've found species with different beak shapes, suggesting they specialized in different types of plants. Some had broad, shovel-like beaks, perfect for scooping up soft vegetation, while others had narrower skulls that might have been used for more selective feeding. The armored dinosaurs of the Aguja Formation represent some of the most heavily defended creatures ever to walk the earth. These living tanks were covered in bony plates and spikes that could deter even the largest predators. The arrangement of their armor wasn't random. It was specifically designed to protect vital organs while still allowing for mobility and flexibility. Some of these armored dinosaurs had forward-pointing shoulder spikes that could be used as weapons, essentially turning them into four-legged battering rams. Others had massive tail clubs that could deliver bone-crushing blows to anything foolish enough to attack from behind. The level of specialization in defensive strategies among these creatures is absolutely mind-boggling. The horned dinosaurs, or Ceratopsians, found in Aguja rocks, show us just how quickly evolution can produce dramatically different species. Even within this single formation, we find multiple species with different horn arrangements, frill shapes, and body sizes. This suggests these animals were rapidly diversifying to take advantage of different ecological opportunities. What's particularly intriguing is that some of these ceratopsians appear to have been endemic to the Aguja region, meaning they evolved specifically in this area and aren't found anywhere else in the world. This tells us that even 80 million years ago, geographic barriers were creating isolated populations that evolved along their own unique evolutionary paths. The small dinosaur species from Aguja include some real surprises. We've found tiny dome-headed dinosaurs with skulls thick enough to engage in head-butting contests, bird-like theropods with long legs built for speed, and early relatives of modern birds that were already showing many of the features we associate with flight. These smaller dinosaurs weren't just miniature versions of their larger relatives. They were highly specialized creatures that filled ecological niches similar to many modern mammals and birds. Some were nocturnal hunters with large eyes adapted for night vision, while others were social species that may have lived in flocks or herds. The predatory dinosaurs of the Aguja Formation represent some of the most sophisticated hunters ever to evolve. These weren't just mindless killing machines. They were intelligent, adaptable predators with complex hunting strategies and social behaviors that allowed them to dominate their ecosystems for millions of years. Some of these theropods had bite forces that would make a Tyrannosaurus rex jealous. We're talking about predators with skulls designed not just for slicing through flesh, but for crushing bones and tearing apart prey that other carnivores couldn't even touch. The wear patterns on their teeth tell us stories of brutal feeding behaviors that involved grabbing, crushing, and dismembering victims with mechanical efficiency. But what's really fascinating is how these predators adapted to hunt different types of prey. Some developed sickle-shaped claws that could slash through tough hide and deliver fatal wounds, while others evolved powerful jaws that could crack open the armored shells of turtles or punch through the bony plates of ankylosaurs. This wasn't random violence. It was precision engineering, honed by millions of years of evolutionary arms races. The smaller theropods present an entirely different picture of predatory behavior. These weren't scaled-down versions of massive carnivores. They were agile, intelligent hunters that filled ecological roles similar to modern wolves or big cats. Some had enlarged brains relative to their body size, suggesting complex problem-solving abilities and sophisticated hunting strategies. Evidence suggests that some of these smaller predators were actually omnivores, supplementing their diet with fruits, seeds, and other plant materials. This dietary flexibility would have given them a significant advantage during times when prey was scarce, allowing them to survive environmental changes that might have wiped out more specialized species. The bird-like theropods found in Aguja rocks are particularly intriguing because they represent a crucial transition in the evolution from dinosaurs to modern birds. These creatures had already developed many avian characteristics, including hollow bones, specialized respiratory systems, and in some cases, primitive feathers that may have been used for display rather than flight. What makes these transitional forms so important is that they show us evolution in action. We can see how natural selection was gradually modifying dinosaur anatomy to eventually produce the incredible diversity of birds we see today. Some of these ancient species were already experimenting with gliding or powered flight, while others remained strictly terrestrial, but developed feathers for insulation or communication. The mammalian fossils from the Aguja Formation give us a glimpse into the early stages of mammalian evolution, when our distant ancestors were still small, nocturnal creatures living in the shadows of the dinosaurs. These weren't the dominant mammals we're familiar with today. They were tiny, generalized animals that survived by staying out of the way of larger predators. Despite their small size, these early mammals were remarkably sophisticated. They had well-developed senses of smell and hearing that allowed them to navigate in darkness, and their teeth suggest they were opportunistic feeders, capable of eating everything from insects to fruits to small vertebrates. Some may have even scavenged from dinosaur carcasses when the opportunity arose. The preservation of soft tissues in some Aguja specimens provides unprecedented insights into the biology of these ancient creatures. We've found fossilized skin impressions that show us the exact texture and scale patterns of dinosaur hide. Some specimens preserve evidence of coloration patterns, giving us our first real glimpses into what these animals actually looked like when they were alive. Even more remarkable are the rare instances where we find fossilized stomach contents or coprolites, fossilized dung, that tell us exactly what these creatures were eating. These discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of ancient food webs and ecological relationships. We can now trace the flow of energy through these prehistoric ecosystems with a precision that was impossible just a few decades ago. The plant fossils from the Aguja Formation paint a picture of a world dominated by flowering plants that were rapidly diversifying and spreading across the landscape. This floral revolution was having profound effects on herbivorous dinosaurs, which were evolving new feeding strategies to take advantage of these new food sources. The forests of the Aguja Formation were unlike anything we see today. Massive conifers towered over an understory filled with ferns, cycads, and early flowering plants that were experimenting with new reproductive strategies. Some of these ancient plants developed complex relationships with dinosaur herbivores, potentially even co-evolving with specific species in ways that benefited both partners. The climate data extracted from Aguja fossils reveals a world that was dramatically warmer and more humid than today. There were no polar ice caps, and even the Arctic regions were warm enough to support lush forests. This greenhouse world created environmental conditions that allowed cold-blooded reptiles to grow to enormous sizes and maintain high activity levels year-round. Seasonal variations did exist, but they were driven more by changes in rainfall patterns than temperature fluctuations. The evidence suggests strong wet and dry seasons that may have triggered annual migrations of large herbivorous dinosaurs following the availability of fresh vegetation. These migrations would have been spectacles rivaling the great mammalian migrations we see in modern Africa. The volcanic activity that was occurring during the formation of Aguja rocks added another layer of complexity to this ancient ecosystem. Periodic ash falls from distant volcanoes created perfect fossilization conditions while also affecting local climate patterns and vegetation growth. Some of the best preserved specimens were buried rapidly during these volcanic events, creating snapshots of life frozen in geological time. The tectonic forces that were reshaping North America during the Cretaceous period created a dynamic landscape of rising mountains, shifting coastlines, and changing river systems. This geological instability provided opportunities for rapid evolutionary change as populations became isolated and then reconnected, leading to bursts of speciation and extinction. What's particularly remarkable about the Aguja Formation is how it captures multiple environmental transitions occurring simultaneously. We can see the effects of rising and falling sea levels, changing climate patterns, and shifting continental positions, all preserved in the rock record. This makes Aguja one of the most complete windows into Cretaceous life that we have anywhere in the world. The discovery techniques used to extract fossils from Aguja rocks have evolved dramatically over the past century. Early paleontologists used crude methods that often damaged or destroyed important specimens. But modern techniques allow us to recover incredibly delicate fossils that preserve microscopic details of bone structure and even cellular organization. Advanced imaging technologies now allow us to study fossils without even removing them from the surrounding rock. CT scans and other non-destructive techniques can reveal internal structures, growth patterns, and even the contents of fossil skulls. This has led to discoveries that would have been impossible using traditional methods. Chemical analysis of Aguja fossils has opened up entirely new avenues of research. We can now determine the temperature of ancient oceans by analyzing the isotopic composition of marine shells, trace migration patterns by studying strontium ratios in teeth, and even reconstruct ancient food webs by examining nitrogen isotopes in bone collagen. The interdisciplinary nature of modern paleontological research means that specialists in geology, chemistry, physics, and biology all contribute to our understanding of Aguja fossils. This collaborative approach has revealed connections and patterns that no single researcher could have discovered working alone. DNA preservation in fossils This old is extremely rare, but recent advances in molecular techniques have allowed researchers to recover small fragments of genetic material from some Aguja specimens. While we're still far from being able to reconstruct complete genomes, even these tiny glimpses into ancient DNA are providing new insights into evolutionary relationships and genetic diversity. The implications of Aguja research extend far beyond academic paleontology. The detailed picture of past ecosystems and climate changes provides crucial data for understanding how modern environments might respond to current global changes. The extinction patterns we see in the fossil record offer sobering lessons about the fragility of complex ecosystems. Conservation efforts in the Aguja Formation region face unique challenges. The fossils are embedded in rocks that are actively eroding, meaning that specimens are constantly being exposed and potentially lost forever, if not collected promptly. This creates a race against time as researchers try to document and preserve as much material as possible. International cooperation between Mexican and American researchers has been crucial for Aguja studies, since the formation spans both sides of the border. This collaborative approach has led to joint expeditions, shared research facilities, and coordinated conservation efforts that benefit scientists and the public in both countries. The educational impact of Aguja discoveries cannot be overstated. Museum exhibits featuring these fossils have inspired countless young people to pursue careers in science, while popular media coverage has brought paleontology to audiences who might never have otherwise learned about deep time and evolution. Future research directions in the Aguja Formation promise even more exciting discoveries. New areas are being explored every year. Advanced techniques are being developed to extract more information from existing specimens, and theoretical frameworks are being refined to better understand the complex interactions between ancient organisms and their environments. The story of the Aguja Formation is ultimately a story about life's incredible ability to adapt, diversify, and persist through changing conditions. These ancient ecosystems face challenges from climate change, volcanic activity, and shifting geography. Yet life not only survived, but thrived in forms that continue to amaze us today. As we continue to explore and understand the Aguja Formation, we're not just learning about the distant past. We're gaining insights that help us understand the present and prepare for the future. The lessons encoded in these ancient rocks remind us that our planet has always been a dynamic, changing world, and that the story of life on Earth is far from over. The chemical signatures locked within Aguja fossils tell stories that go beyond simple anatomy and behavior. When scientists analyze the mineral composition of ancient bones and teeth, they're essentially reading chemical fingerprints that reveal incredible details about how these creatures lived and died. Oxygen isotopes in tooth enamel can tell us about drinking water temperatures, while carbon isotopes reveal dietary preferences with startling precision. Consider the implications of finding marine isotope signatures in the bones of terrestrial dinosaurs. This doesn't mean land-dwelling creatures were swimming in the ocean, but rather that they were drinking water, influenced by marine environments, painting a picture of interconnected ecosystems where the boundary between land and sea was constantly blurred. The bone histology of Aguja specimens reveals growth patterns that challenge everything we thought we knew about dinosaur biology. Microscopic examination of bone tissue shows that some species grew incredibly rapidly during their juvenile years, then dramatically slowed their growth as adults. Others maintained steady growth rates throughout their entire lives, suggesting fundamentally different metabolic strategies. What's particularly fascinating is discovering seasonal growth markers in these ancient bones, similar to tree rings. These growth lines tell us about annual cycles of feast and famine, wet and dry seasons, and environmental stresses that affected entire populations. Some individuals show evidence of surviving multiple environmental crises, their bones bearing the scars of droughts, floods, and other catastrophic events. The pathology preserved in Aguja fossils provides a window into the harsh realities of prehistoric life. We find evidence of broken bones that healed, infections that spread through bone tissue, and parasitic infestations that affected internal organs. Some specimens show bite marks from predators that the victim obviously survived, at least temporarily, giving us glimpses of predator-prey interactions that played out millions of years ago. Arthritis and other degenerative conditions appear frequently in older individuals, suggesting that some of these creatures lived long enough to experience age-related health problems. This longevity data helps us understand population dynamics and social structures in ways that would be impossible from studying modern animals alone. The trace fossils found throughout Aguja rocks add another layer of behavioral information that bones alone cannot provide. Fossilized footprints reveal not just the size and gait of ancient animals, but their social behaviors, migration patterns, and even parental care strategies. Some trackways show adult animals walking alongside juveniles, suggesting family groups or herding behavior. Coprolites, or fossilized dung, might seem unappetizing to discuss, but they're absolute gold mines of ecological information. These specimens contain undigested fragments of bones, teeth, scales, seeds, and wood that tell us exactly what ancient creatures were eating. We can reconstruct food webs with remarkable precision and even identify seasonal dietary changes. Some coprolites contain parasitic worms and other intestinal fauna, giving us insights into the disease ecology of prehistoric environments. The presence of certain parasites can even help us determine whether particular species were warm-blooded or cold-blooded, since parasite life cycles are often temperature-dependent. Gastroliths, or stomach stones, found with some Aguja dinosaurs, reveal sophisticated digestive strategies. These polished rocks were swallowed deliberately to help grind plant material in muscular stomachs, similar to the gizzards of modern birds. The types of stones chosen and their degree of polish tell us about feeding behaviors and digestive efficiency. The preservation of organic compounds in some Aguja specimens has opened entirely new research avenues. Melanin pigments occasionally survive fossilization, allowing scientists to reconstruct the actual colors and patterns of dinosaur skin and feathers. These discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of dinosaur appearance and behavior. Some specimens preserve evidence of bioluminescence or iridescence, suggesting that visual communication was far more sophisticated in prehistoric ecosystems than previously imagined. The ability to produce and perceive complex visual signals would have been crucial for species recognition, mating displays, and territorial behaviors. The plant-animal interactions preserved in Aguja rocks reveal co-evolutionary relationships that were incredibly sophisticated. We find evidence of dinosaurs with specialized beaks perfectly adapted for feeding on specific plant species, while the plants themselves show defensive adaptations like thicker protective coatings and chemical deterrents. Fossilized seed dispersal provides direct evidence of mutualistic relationships between plants and animals. Some large herbivorous dinosaurs appear to have been crucial for spreading certain plant species across vast distances, creating the diverse forest communities that supported such incredible animal diversity. The pollination strategies of Cretaceous flowering plants were already quite advanced, with some species showing clear adaptations for attracting specific types of insects or other small animals. This co-evolutionary dance between plants and their pollinators was creating the foundation for the incredible diversity of flowering plants we see today. Fungal networks preserved in Aguja soils reveal complex underground ecosystems that supported the massive plant communities. These mycorrhizal relationships were crucial for nutrient cycling and forest health, creating the stable foundations that allowed such diverse vertebrate communities to flourish. The taphonomic processes that created the exceptional preservation in Aguja rocks were incredibly specific and rare. Rapid burial in fine sediments during flood events created oxygen-free environments that prevented decay, while mineral-rich groundwater gradually replaced organic tissues with stone, preserving even microscopic details. Volcanic ash layers provided perfect time markers that allow us to correlate specimens found in different locations and understand the precise timing of evolutionary changes. These chronological anchors are crucial for understanding the rates at which different lineages were evolving and diversifying. The orientation and articulation of skeletal remains tell stories about how individual animals died and what happened to their bodies afterward. Some specimens show evidence of scavenging by various creatures, while others were buried so rapidly that they remain in perfect life positions. Mass mortality events preserved in Aguja rocks provide snapshots of environmental catastrophes that affected entire ecosystems. These death assemblages reveal how different species responded to droughts, floods, volcanic eruptions, and other natural disasters, giving us insights into ecological resilience and vulnerability. The biomechanical analysis of Aguja fossils has revealed incredible sophistication in the engineering of prehistoric life. The structural design of dinosaur skeletons shows adaptations for specific locomotory styles, feeding strategies, and environmental challenges that rival anything produced by modern engineering. Finite element analysis of fossil skulls reveals how different species dealt with the mechanical stresses of their particular feeding strategies. Some predators had skulls optimized for delivering crushing bites, while others were designed for rapid, slashing attacks that could disable prey quickly. The joint anatomy of large dinosaurs shows sophisticated solutions to the problem of supporting massive body weights, while maintaining mobility. Some species developed unique adaptations that have no modern equivalents, representing evolutionary experiments that we're only now beginning to understand. Muscle attachment sites on fossil bones allow us to reconstruct the size and arrangement of soft tissues, giving us insights into strength, speed, and endurance capabilities. Some Aguja dinosaurs appear to have been capable of sustained high-speed locomotion, while others were built for power and stability. The sensory capabilities of Aguja fauna were remarkably diverse and sophisticated. Brain endocasts reveal enlarged olfactory regions in some species, suggesting keen senses of smell that would have been crucial for finding food, detecting predators, and locating mates across vast landscapes. Inner ear structure preserved in some skulls tells us about balance and spatial orientation abilities. Some small theropods had inner ears, similar to modern birds, suggesting they were capable of rapid, agile movements and possibly even flight or gliding behaviors. Eye socket size and shape indicate that many Aguja species had excellent vision, with some showing adaptations for night vision or enhanced color perception. The visual world of these ancient creatures was likely far richer and more complex than we typically imagine. The acoustic capabilities of various species are revealed through skull anatomy and the presence of specialized structures for sound production. Some dinosaurs had elaborate nasal crests that functioned as resonating chambers, allowing them to produce complex vocalizations for communication across long distances. The reproductive strategies preserved in Aguja rocks show remarkable diversity and sophistication. Fossilized eggs and nests reveal parental care behaviors that were far more complex than simple egg-laying and abandonment. Some species built elaborate nests with temperature control systems, while others showed evidence of extended parental care. Embryonic development preserved in fossilized eggs provides unprecedented insights into how these creatures grew from tiny hatchlings into massive adults. Growth rates and developmental patterns varied dramatically between species, suggesting different life history strategies adapted to specific ecological niches. Sexual dimorphism in some Aguja species reveals complex mating systems and social structures. Size differences between males and females, along with specialized ornamental features, suggest elaborate courtship behaviors and possibly polygamous mating systems in some species. The juveniles preserved in Aguja rocks often show dramatically different anatomical features from adults, indicating that many species underwent major ecological shifts as they grew. Young individuals may have occupied entirely different niches from their parents, reducing competition within species and allowing populations to exploit resources more efficiently. The migration patterns inferred from Aguja fossil distributions suggest that some species undertook seasonal movements covering hundreds or thousands of miles. These ancient migrations would have been spectacular events, with massive herds of herbivores followed by predators and scavengers in a continental-scale ecological drama. The evolutionary innovations first appearing in Aguja fauna went on to become crucial features of later ecosystems. Many of the adaptations we see in these ancient creatures were evolutionary experiments that either succeeded brilliantly or failed spectacularly, providing natural laboratories for understanding how evolution actually works. The extinction patterns at the end of the Cretaceous period are preserved with remarkable clarity in the uppermost Aguja rocks. We can see which lineages were already in decline before the final catastrophe, and which were thriving right up until the end, providing crucial data for understanding mass extinction dynamics. The recovery patterns following local environmental disturbances show how ecosystems rebuilt themselves after catastrophic events. Some species appear to have been remarkably resilient, quickly recolonizing disturbed areas, while others took much longer to recover or never returned at all. The endemism observed in Aguja fauna suggests that geographic barriers were creating isolated populations that evolved along independent trajectories. This pattern of regional differentiation was setting the stage for the incredible diversification that would follow in later geological periods. The ecological complexity preserved in these ancient rocks rivals anything we see in modern ecosystems. The number of specialized niches, the intricacy of predator-prey relationships, and the sophistication of plant-animal interactions all point to evolutionary processes that were already incredibly advanced 80 million years ago. The technological advances that continue to revolutionize Aguja research promise even more spectacular discoveries in the coming decades. New imaging techniques, chemical analysis methods, and computational approaches are revealing aspects of ancient life that were completely inaccessible to earlier generations of researchers. The international collaborative networks that have developed around Aguja research represent a model for how modern science can transcend political boundaries and cultural differences in pursuit of knowledge. Researchers from multiple continents work together to unlock the secrets of these ancient ecosystems. The educational outreach programs associated with Aguja research are inspiring new generations of scientists while also building public support for continued exploration and conservation. School programs, museum exhibits, and popular media presentations are bringing these discoveries to audiences around the world. The conservation challenges facing the Aguja Formation require innovative approaches that balance scientific research with environmental protection and local community needs. Sustainable collection practices and habitat preservation are crucial for ensuring that future generations can continue to learn from these irreplaceable resources. The philosophical implications of Aguja discoveries extend far beyond academic paleontology. These ancient ecosystems challenge our assumptions about the uniqueness of modern life and force us to reconsider our place in the grand sweep of evolutionary history. The stories preserved in Aguja rocks remind us that our planet has always been a dynamic, changing world where life persists through constant adaptation and innovation. The creatures that inhabited these ancient landscapes faced challenges and opportunities that were both similar to and dramatically different from those confronting modern ecosystems. As we continue to explore the Aguja Formation, each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of how life on Earth has evolved and diversified over deep time. The lessons encoded in these rocks provide crucial insights for understanding not just the past, but also the present and future of life on our remarkable planet. The genetic legacy of Aguja creatures extends far beyond what we can see in their fossilized remains. When scientists examine the evolutionary relationships between ancient species and their modern descendants, patterns emerge that reveal how major biological innovations were tested and refined over millions of years. Some lineages that thrived in Aguja ecosystems went on to dominate later periods, while others represent evolutionary dead ends that tell us about paths not taken. The molecular clock data extracted from comparative studies suggests that many modern animal groups were already diverging during the Aguja period, even though their fossil representatives might look quite different from their contemporary relatives. This hidden diversity reminds us that evolution is constantly experimenting with new forms and functions, most of which remain invisible in the fossil record. What's particularly striking is how certain Aguja species appear to have been evolutionary pioneers, developing features that wouldn't become common until millions of years later. These evolutionary prophets were essentially beta-testing biological innovations that would eventually revolutionize entire ecosystems. The biomolecular evidence recovered from Aguja specimens continues to challenge traditional views of prehistoric metabolism and physiology. Protein fragments preserved in bone matrix suggest that some dinosaur species had metabolic rates intermediate between modern reptiles and birds, supporting theories about the gradual evolution of warm-bloodedness. Collagen sequences recovered from well-preserved specimens reveal growth patterns and cellular processes that were far more sophisticated than previously imagined. Some species appear to have had seasonal metabolic adjustments that allowed them to survive environmental fluctuations that would have been fatal to less adaptable creatures. The amino acid racemization patterns in ancient proteins provide temperature data that helps reconstruct the precise thermal environments these creatures experienced. This biochemical thermometer reveals that Aguja ecosystems were not uniformly tropical, but included microclimates that supported surprising biological diversity. The isotopic signatures in Aguja fossils paint detailed pictures of ancient food webs that were incredibly complex and dynamic. Nitrogen isotope ratios reveal trophic levels with precision that allows us to reconstruct who was eating whom with remarkable accuracy. Some predators occupied higher trophic positions than any modern carnivores, suggesting food chains that were longer and more elaborate than anything we see today. Carbon isotope analysis reveals dietary shifts that occurred throughout individual lifespans, showing that many species changed their feeding strategies as they grew and matured. Young individuals often occupied completely different ecological niches from their parents, reducing intraspecific competition and maximizing resource utilization. Strontium isotope ratios in teeth and bones track movement patterns across ancient landscapes, revealing migration routes and territorial boundaries that were invisible to earlier researchers. Some herbivorous dinosaurs appear to have undertaken seasonal migrations covering hundreds of miles. Following the availability of preferred plant species, the trace element chemistry of Aguja fossils provides insights into environmental conditions that go far beyond simple temperature and humidity data. heavy metal concentrations reveal volcanic activity levels, while rare earth element patterns indicate the types of rocks that were weathering in ancient watersheds. Paleomagnetic data locked within Aguja sediments reveals not just the ancient positions of continents, but also the intensity and frequency of magnetic field reversals that may have affected atmospheric chemistry and climate patterns. These cosmic influences created environmental pressures that drove evolutionary innovation in unexpected directions. The sedimentological analysis of Aguja deposits reveals depositional environments that were far more dynamic than simple beach or river settings. We're looking at complex deltaic systems where freshwater rivers met marine environments, creating brackish zones that supported unique biological communities. Storm deposits preserved within the formation document the frequency and intensity of ancient hurricanes and other extreme weather events. These catastrophic episodes were crucial for creating the rapid burial conditions that preserved so many spectacular fossils, but they also reveal how prehistoric ecosystems responded to environmental disturbances. Paleosol horizons within Aguja rocks preserve ancient soil chemistry that tells us about atmospheric composition, rainfall patterns, and vegetation density. These buried soils contain fossilized root systems and soil organisms that help us understand the underground ecosystems that supported such diverse surface communities. The diagenetic processes that affected Aguja fossils after burial created a natural laboratory for understanding how organic materials transform into stone. Different burial environments produce different types of preservation, allowing us to compare specimens that were fossilized under various chemical conditions. Fluid inclusion studies of minerals within fossilized bones reveal the exact chemistry of ancient groundwater systems. These microscopic time capsules contain samples of Cretaceous water that allow us to analyze ancient ocean chemistry and atmospheric composition with unprecedented precision. The tectonic history of the Aguja region created a constantly changing landscape that drove evolutionary innovation through geographic isolation and reconnection. Mountain-building episodes separated populations that then evolved independently, while erosional events brought disparate communities back into contact. Fault systems active during Aguja deposition created topographic barriers that influenced drainage patterns, climate zones, and migration routes. These geological features were crucial for creating the environmental heterogeneity that supported such incredible biological diversity. The volcanic ash layers interbedded with Aguja sediments provide not just chronological markers, but also reveal the intensity and frequency of explosive eruptions that periodically disrupted regional ecosystems. These volcanic events created both challenges and opportunities for the creatures living in affected areas. Hydrothermal activity associated with volcanic systems created unique chemical environments that may have supported specialized biological communities. Hot springs and mineral-rich seeps provided oases of unusual chemistry that allowed certain species to exploit resources unavailable elsewhere. The metamorphic processes that affected some Aguja rocks after deposition reveal the deep crustal forces that were reshaping the North American continent. These thermal and pressure changes sometimes enhanced fossil preservation. by creating exceptionally hard, durable rock matrices. The economic geology of the Aguja Formation extends far beyond its paleontological treasures. Hydrocarbon deposits associated with ancient organic matter provide insights into the carbon cycle processes that were operating during the Cretaceous greenhouse period. Uranium deposits within some Aguja rocks formed through groundwater processes that concentrated radioactive elements millions of years after the original sediments were deposited. These ore bodies provide natural laboratories for studying long-term geochemical processes and environmental change. The groundwater systems that flow through Aguja rocks today carry dissolved minerals and organic compounds that reflect both ancient and modern environmental processes. These hydrogeological studies help us understand how fossil preservation occurs and continues to evolve over geological time. The engineering properties of Aguja rocks have important implications for construction and land use planning in the region. The same sedimentary structures that preserve fossils also influence slope stability, foundation design, and erosion patterns that affect modern communities. The archaeological significance of the Aguja region extends far beyond its paleontological importance. Human occupation sites associated with the formation reveal how indigenous peoples interacted with these landscapes and potentially even collected fossils for ceremonial or practical purposes. The ethnographic studies of local communities reveal traditional knowledge about fossil localities and geological processes that complement scientific research. Indigenous names for rock formations and fossil types often encode observations about geological relationships that weren't recognized by Western science until much later. The cultural impact of Aguja discoveries has influenced art, literature, and popular culture in ways that extend far beyond academic paleontology. These ancient creatures have inspired everything from children's books to blockbuster movies, helping to build public support for continued scientific research. The tourism potential of Aguja paleontological sites creates both opportunities and challenges for local communities. Sustainable ecotourism can provide economic benefits while supporting conservation efforts, but it must be carefully managed to prevent damage to irreplaceable fossil resources. The legal frameworks governing fossil collection and research in the Aguja Formation involve complex interactions between international, federal, state, and local jurisdictions. These regulatory challenges require innovative approaches that balance scientific access with resource protection and community rights. The intellectual property issues surrounding Aguja discoveries raise important questions about who owns and controls access to paleontological knowledge. International collaborations must navigate complex legal and ethical terrain while ensuring that research benefits are shared equitably. The technological innovations developed for Aguja research have applications far beyond paleontology. Advanced imaging techniques, chemical analysis methods, and computational approaches developed for fossil studies are being adapted for medical research, material science, and environmental monitoring. The data management challenges posed by modern Aguja research require sophisticated database systems that can handle everything from field photographs to geochemical analyses. These digital archives are becoming crucial resources for researchers around the world. The machine learning applications being developed for Aguja studies promise to revolutionize how we identify, classify, and interpret fossil specimens. Artificial intelligence systems trained on thousands of fossil images can now recognize patterns and relationships that human researchers might miss. The virtual reality reconstructions of Aguja ecosystems allow researchers and the public to experience these ancient worlds in ways that were impossible just a few years ago. These immersive technologies are transforming both scientific research and public education. The climate modeling studies that incorporate Aguja paleoenvironmental data are helping a scientist understand how Earth's climate system responds to different atmospheric compositions and continental configurations. These ancient climate analogs provide crucial data for predicting future climate changes. The biodiversity patterns preserved in Aguja rocks reveal ecosystem dynamics that operated over timescales far longer than any modern ecological study. These deep time perspectives on community assembly and species interactions provide fundamental insights into how biological diversity is generated and maintained. The extinction risk assessment methods developed from modern conservation biology are being applied retrospectively to Aguja faunas to understand which characteristics made some species more vulnerable to environmental changes than others. These evolutionary lessons have direct applications for protecting modern endangered species. The restoration ecology principles derived from studying Aguja ecosystems provide guidance for reconstructing damaged modern environments. Understanding how ancient communities recovered from disturbances helps inform contemporary habitat restoration projects. The invasion biology insights gleaned from Aguja fossil assemblages reveal how species colonize new habitats and establish themselves in existing communities. These ancient invasion events provide natural experiments that help us understand modern biological invasions. The coevolutionary dynamics preserved in Aguja rocks show how different lineages influenced each other's evolution over millions of years. These extended evolutionary partnerships and arms races provide insights into the processes that generate biological complexity and innovation. The phylogenetic studies based on Aguja specimens continue to revise our understanding of evolutionary relationships among major vertebrate groups. New fossil discoveries regularly overturn established ideas about when and how different lineages diverged from their common ancestors. The morphometric analyses of Aguja fossils reveal patterns of morphological evolution that operated over geological timescales. These quantitative studies of shape change provide insights into the developmental and genetic mechanisms that drive evolutionary transformation. The functional morphology studies of Aguja specimens use engineering principles to understand how ancient creatures solved biological problems. These biomechanical analyses reveal the physical constraints and opportunities that shaped evolutionary innovation. The developmental biology insights derived from Aguja embryonic and juvenile fossils show how changes in growth patterns produce the incredible morphological diversity we see in the adult forms. These evolutionary developmental studies connect genetics, development, and evolution in ways that weren't possible before. The behavioral ecology inferences drawn from Aguja fossil evidence reveal social systems and ecological strategies that were far more sophisticated than traditionally assumed. Trackway analyses, bone bed studies, and taphonomic patterns all contribute to our understanding of how these creatures lived and interacted. The community ecology patterns preserved in Aguja assemblages show how species diversity and ecosystem structure changed over time in response to environmental fluctuations. These paleoecological studies provide baselines for understanding natural ecosystem dynamics over geological timescales. The biogeographic analyses of Aguja faunus reveal how geographic barriers and connections influence the distribution and evolution of different lineages. These historical biogeographic studies help us understand how modern biodiversity patterns were established. The astrobiology implications of Aguja research extend far beyond Earth-based paleontology. The extreme environments and unusual preservation conditions documented in these rocks provide analogs for understanding how life might evolve and be preserved on other planets. The geomicrobiology studies of Aguja specimens reveal the crucial role that microorganisms played in fossilization processes and ancient ecosystem functioning. These microscopic communities were essential components of Cretaceous food webs and biogeochemical cycles. The environmental monitoring applications of techniques developed for Aguja research are helping scientists track modern environmental changes with unprecedented precision. The same methods used to analyze ancient climate proxies are being applied to understand contemporary pollution and habitat degradation. The material science applications of biomineralization processes observed in Aguja fossils are inspiring new approaches to engineering strong, lightweight structures. The natural nanotechnology preserved in these ancient specimens provides blueprints for advanced materials design. The computational paleontology methods being developed for Aguja studies are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in fossil analysis. High-performance computing clusters are being used to model ancient ecosystem dynamics and test evolutionary hypotheses with unprecedented sophistication. The crowdsourcing initiatives that engage citizen scientists in Aguja research are democratizing paleontology and accelerating the pace of discovery. Online platforms allow volunteers around the world to contribute to fossil identification, data collection, and hypothesis testing. The interdisciplinary collaborations fostered by Aguja research are breaking down traditional barriers between scientific disciplines. Paleontologists now work routinely with physicists, chemists, computer scientists, and engineers to address questions that no single field could answer alone. The international partnerships that have developed around Aguja studies serve as models for how scientific collaboration can transcend political boundaries and cultural differences. These research networks are creating global communities of scientists united by common interests and shared goals. The educational innovations inspired by Aguja discoveries are transforming how earth science is taught at all levels. Interactive museum exhibits, online simulations and field-based learning experiences are making paleontology more accessible and engaging for students of all ages. The public engagement strategies developed for Aguja research are building broader support for scientific research and environmental conservation. Social media campaigns, documentary films, and popular publications are bringing these discoveries to audiences far beyond the scientific community. The policy implications of Aguja research extend into areas like climate change mitigation, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable resource management. The deep time perspectives provided by these ancient ecosystems inform contemporary environmental decision-making in crucial ways. The philosophical questions raised by Aguja discoveries challenge our understanding of life's place in the universe and the nature of evolutionary change. These ancient worlds remind us that our current ecosystems represent just one brief moment in the vast sweep of evolutionary experimentation. The future research directions emerging from Aguja studies promise even more spectacular discoveries and insights. New field sites are being explored, innovative analytical techniques are being developed, and theoretical frameworks are being refined to address increasingly sophisticated questions about ancient life. The legacy of Aguja research will undoubtedly influence scientific understanding for generations to come. The specimens, data, and insights generated by current studies provide foundations for future researchers who will undoubtedly ask questions and develop techniques that we can't even imagine today. The inspiration provided by these ancient ecosystems reminds us that life on Earth has always been characterized by incredible creativity, resilience, and innovation. The creatures that inhabited the Aguja Formation faced challenges and opportunities that were both similar to and dramatically different from those confronting modern species. As we continue to explore these remarkable fossils, we're not just learning about the distant past, we're gaining insights that help us understand the present and prepare for the future. The stories preserved in Aguja rocks provide crucial perspectives on how life responds to environmental change and how ecosystems recover from catastrophic events. The technological revolutions that are transforming Aguja research will undoubtedly lead to discoveries that we can't currently anticipate. Each new analytical technique and theoretical framework opens up possibilities for understanding aspects of ancient life that were previously inaccessible to scientific investigation. The collaborative networks that have formed around Aguja studies represent a new model for how science can be conducted in an increasingly connected world. These international partnerships are demonstrating how shared curiosity and common goals can overcome political and cultural barriers to create truly global research communities. The conservation challenges facing the Aguja Formation require innovative solutions that balance scientific research with environmental protection and community needs. The lessons learned from managing these paleontological resources will inform conservation strategies for other scientifically important landscapes around the world. The educational impact of Aguja discoveries will continue to grow as new technologies make these ancient worlds more accessible to students and the general public. Virtual field trips, augmented reality applications, and interactive simulations are creating opportunities for people to experience paleontology in ways that were unimaginable just a few years ago. The cultural significance of these discoveries extends far beyond their scientific value. Aguja fossils have become symbols of deep time, evolutionary change, and the incredible diversity of life on Earth. They inspire wonder, curiosity, and respect for the natural world in ways that connect science to broader human values and aspirations. The preservation quality found in certain Aguja specimens defies everything we thought we knew about fossilization processes. When paleontologists first discovered skin impressions so detailed they could see individual scales, many assumed they were looking at recent remains rather than creatures that died 80 million years ago. The cellular structure visible in some bone samples reveals growth patterns that operate like biological hard drives, storing information about stress, nutrition, and environmental conditions throughout an individual's entire lifetime. These microscopic details tell stories that would make any detective novel seem simple by comparison. Imagine being able to determine not just what an ancient predator ate for its last meal, but also what it consumed weeks earlier based on chemical signatures locked within its bones. Some Aguja specimens preserve evidence of parasitic infections that affected bone growth, creating permanent records of diseases that plagued these creatures millions of years before humans even existed. The bite marks found on various fossils create crime scene reconstructions that span geological time. Tooth impressions in turtle shells reveal attack patterns used by massive crocodilians, while scratches on dinosaur bones show evidence of scavenging behaviors that occurred after death. These forensic details paint pictures of ancient ecosystems where survival required constant vigilance and adaptation. What's particularly remarkable is finding healed injuries that show these creatures could survive attacks that would be fatal to most modern animals. Broken ribs that mended, partially severed tail vertebrae that continued to function, and skull fractures that sealed over time all demonstrate remarkable resilience in the face of environmental dangers that we can barely comprehend. The growth rate data extracted from bone histology reveals metabolic strategies that have no modern parallels. Some species could triple their body size in a single year during favorable conditions, then virtually halt growth during environmental stress periods. This physiological flexibility allowed them to survive fluctuations that would devastate populations with more rigid growth patterns. Temperature estimates derived from oxygen isotope analysis show that some Aguja creatures experience seasonal temperature variations that would challenge even the most adaptable modern species. Yet these ancient animals not only survived, but thrived in conditions that oscillated between tropical greenhouse climates and more temperate periods within single lifetimes. The chemical warfare preserved in plant fossils reveals evolutionary arms races between herbivores and their food sources that make modern plant defenses seem primitive. Some ancient plants developed toxin concentrations that would be lethal to most contemporary animals, while the herbivorous dinosaurs evolved digestive systems capable of neutralizing these chemical weapons. Pollination strategies documented in flowering plant fossils show coevolutionary relationships that were already incredibly sophisticated. Some species developed flower structures so specialized that they could only be pollinated by specific types of insects, creating mutual dependencies that lasted for millions of years. These ancient partnerships laid the groundwork for the complex pollination networks that support modern ecosystems. The fungal networks preserved in Aguja paleosols reveal underground communities that were crucial for nutrient cycling and forest health. These mycorrhizal relationships created information superhighways that connected plants across vast distances, allowing entire forest communities to share resources and communicate about environmental threats. Bacterial communities fossilized within bone cavities show that even the internal environments of large dinosaurs supported diverse microbial ecosystems. These symbiotic relationships were essential for digestion, immune function, and possibly even vitamin synthesis, creating biological factories that operated within living creatures. The preservation of soft tissue proteins in some specimens has revolutionized our understanding of ancient biomechanics. Collagen fibers still maintain their structural organization after 80 million years, allowing scientists to determine muscle attachment angles and estimate bite forces with engineering precision. Blood vessel networks preserved in some bone samples reveal circulation patterns that supported incredibly high metabolic rates. Some dinosaur species had cardiovascular systems that could deliver oxygen and nutrients at rates that exceed those of modern mammals of comparable size, suggesting activity levels that would exhaust most contemporary animals. Neural tissue impressions found in several skulls provide direct evidence of brain organization and sensory capabilities. Some predatory species had enlarged areas dedicated to visual processing, while others show massive olfactory regions that could detect chemical signals across enormous distances. The acoustic analysis of fossilized skull structures reveals communication systems that were far more complex than simple roars or calls. Some species had resonating chambers that could produce infrasonic frequencies capable of traveling for miles, allowing herd coordination across vast landscapes. Social behavior evidence preserved in bone bed assemblages shows that many species lived in complex multi-generational communities. Age distributions and size variations suggest sophisticated social hierarchies and cooperative behaviors that required advanced cognitive abilities. Nesting site geology reveals that some species chose locations with specific thermal properties that could regulate egg incubation temperatures. These ancient creatures understood environmental engineering principles that modern reptiles still use today, but applied them on scales that dwarf contemporary efforts. Parental care evidence extends far beyond simple nest construction and egg guarding. Some fossils preserve adult and juvenile animals in positions that suggest active teaching and protection behaviors that continued well after hatching or birth. Migration route reconstructions based on isotopic analysis reveal seasonal movements that covered entire continents. These ancient highways connected diverse ecosystems and allowed genetic exchange between populations separated by thousands of miles. The timing of these migrations was precisely coordinated with seasonal resource availability, suggesting internal biological calendars that could track environmental cycles with remarkable accuracy. Some species appear to have made multi-generational journeys where individuals never completed entire migration routes during their lifetimes. Predator-prey dynamics preserved in trackway assemblages show hunting strategies that were incredibly sophisticated. Some carnivorous species used cooperative pack behaviors to bring down prey much larger than themselves, while others relied on ambush tactics that required patience and precise timing. The diversity of hunting adaptations found in Aguja predators reveals ecological specialization that allowed multiple carnivorous species to coexist in the same environments. Each had unique prey preferences, hunting methods, and habitat requirements that minimized direct competition. Scavenging behaviors documented through toothmark patterns show that ecological roles were far more fluid than simple predator-prey relationships. Many species supplemented their diets with carrion when opportunities arose, creating complex food webs where energy flowed through multiple pathways. The bone modification patterns created by different scavengers allow scientists to identify which species had access to carcasses at different stages of decomposition. This creates detailed pictures of ecological succession that occurred around food sources in ancient environments. Seasonal dietary shifts preserved in toothwear patterns reveal remarkable behavioral flexibility. Many species could switch between different food sources as availability changed, allowing them to survive environmental fluctuations that might otherwise cause population crashes. The plant processing techniques developed by herbivorous dinosaurs were incredibly diverse and sophisticated. Some species had grinding teeth that could break down the toughest plant materials, while others developed fermentation chambers that could extract nutrients from low-quality vegetation. Digestive system anatomy preserved in some specimens reveals processing strategies that have no modern equivalents. Some herbivores had multi-chambered stomachs that could house different bacterial communities, specialized for breaking down specific plant compounds. The energy budgets calculated for various Aguja species show that some creatures required caloric intakes that would be impossible to sustain in modern ecosystems. These ancient environments were so productive that they could support animals with metabolic demands far exceeding those of contemporary species. Territorial behavior evidence found in bone distributions and trackway patterns suggests that some species defended areas covering hundreds of square miles. These territories were marked and maintained through complex behavioral displays that required significant energy investments. The mating system diversity inferred from sexual dimorphism patterns reveals reproductive strategies ranging from monogamous pair bonding to complex polygamous arrangements. Some species developed elaborate ornamental features that served no function other than attracting mates and intimidating rivals. Combat behavior preserved in pathological bone conditions shows that intraspecific competition could be incredibly violent. Some individuals bear evidence of repeated battles that left permanent scars and deformities, suggesting social systems where physical dominance determined access to resources and mates. The healing rates observed in injured specimens indicate that some species had regenerative capabilities that exceed those of most modern vertebrates. Broken bones could mend completely within months, and some individuals survived injuries that would be permanently debilitating to contemporary animals. Stress indicators preserved in tooth enamel and bone structure reveal how environmental pressures affected individual health and population dynamics. Drought years, volcanic eruptions, and other catastrophic events left permanent marks that can still be read in fossil specimens today. Population genetics inferred from morphological variation patterns suggest that some Aguja species maintained genetic diversity across vast geographic ranges through long-distance dispersal and gene flow. These ancient populations were often more genetically diverse than their modern relatives. The demographic analysis of age structures in fossil assemblages reveals life history strategies that were optimized for specific environmental conditions. Some species had high reproductive rates but short lifespans, while others invested in longevity and extended parental care. Extinction vulnerability patterns observed in the fossil record show that certain characteristics made some species more susceptible to environmental changes than others. Large body size, specialized diets, and limited dispersal abilities were often associated with higher extinction risks. Evolutionary innovation rates calculated from morphological change patterns reveal that some lineages were experimenting with new forms and functions at unprecedented speeds. The rapid diversification observed in some groups suggests evolutionary pressures that forced continuous adaptation. The coevolutionary dynamics between different species created feedback loops that drove increasingly sophisticated adaptations. Arms races between predators and prey, plants and herbivores, and parasites and hosts resulted in biological solutions that pushed the boundaries of what seemed physically possible. Adaptive radiation patterns documented in the fossil record show how new ecological opportunities were rapidly exploited by evolving lineages. Empty niches were filled within relatively short geological time frames through explosive diversification events. The phylogenetic relationships revealed by Aguja specimens continue to overturn established ideas about evolutionary relationships among major vertebrate groups. New discoveries regularly require revision of family trees that seemed well established based on previous fossil evidence. Biogeographic patterns preserved in fossil distributions reveal how continental positions and climate changes influence the evolution and dispersal of different lineages. Ancient geographic barriers created isolated populations that evolved along independent trajectories. The dispersal mechanisms used by various species to colonize new habitats were incredibly diverse. Some relied on active migration, others used passive transport by ocean currents or wind, and still others developed specialized propagules that could survive long-distance travel. Habitat specialization patterns show that many Aguja species were adapted to very specific environmental conditions. This ecological specialization allowed high species diversity, but also made some lineages vulnerable to habitat changes. The niche construction behaviors documented in the fossil record reveal how some species actively modified their environments in ways that benefited themselves and other community members. These ecosystem engineers created habitat heterogeneity that supported increased biodiversity. Succession dynamics preserved in stratigraphic sequences show how ecological communities developed and changed over time in response to environmental disturbances. Recovery patterns following catastrophic events provide insights into ecosystem resilience and stability. The keystone species effects inferred from community composition changes reveal how certain organisms had disproportionate influences on ecosystem structure and function. The loss or addition of these critical species could trigger cascading effects throughout entire ecological networks. Trophic cascade patterns documented in fossil assemblages show how changes at one level of the food web could propagate through multiple trophic levels. Top predator populations had far-reaching effects on herbivore communities and plant distributions. The ecosystem service functions provided by various Aguja species were crucial for maintaining environmental health and productivity. Seed dispersers, pollinators, and decomposers created the biological infrastructure that supported diverse ecological communities. Nutrient cycling processes mediated by different organisms created biogeochemical cycles that were far more complex than those operating in modern ecosystems. The scale and intensity of these ancient nutrient fluxes supported productivity levels that seem almost impossible today. Primary productivity estimates for Aguja ecosystems reveal photosynthetic rates that exceeded those of the most productive modern environments. This biological engine powered food webs that could support incredible numbers of large-bodied consumers. The carbon sequestration processes operating in ancient forests were storing atmospheric carbon at rates that dwarf contemporary efforts. These natural carbon sinks were crucial for regulating global climate patterns during greenhouse periods. Oxygen production by marine and terrestrial photosynthetic organisms maintained atmospheric compositions that were dramatically different from modern conditions. These ancient oxygen levels supported metabolic processes that would be impossible in today's atmosphere. Water cycle modifications caused by extensive forest cover and high evapotranspiration rates created regional climate patterns that were self-reinforcing. Vegetation communities were essentially creating their own weather systems through biological processes. Soil formation processes, mediated by plant and animal communities, were creating substrate conditions that could support incredibly diverse biological communities. These ancient soils were biological factories that concentrated nutrients and maintained optimal growing conditions. The landscape engineering accomplished by large herbivorous dinosaurs created habitat mosaics that supported species requiring different environmental conditions. Trampling, browsing, and wallowing behaviors maintained ecological diversity across vast areas. Fire ecology patterns preserved in charcoal deposits reveal how natural burning cycles were maintained through complex interactions between climate, vegetation, and animal behaviors. Some species appear to have been adapted to take advantage of post-fire resource pulses. Hydrological modifications caused by the animal activities created wetland systems that served as biodiversity hotspots and nursery areas for many species. Beaver-like ecosystem engineering was occurring millions of years before actual beavers evolved. The geological processes influenced by biological activities were operating on scales that rivaled those of purely physical forces. Bioturbation, bioerosion, and biomineralization were reshaping landscapes through the cumulative effects of countless individual organisms. Weathering processes accelerated by plant and microbial activities were breaking down rocks and releasing nutrients at rates that supported massive biological productivity. These biological weathering engines were crucial for maintaining soil fertility across vast areas. Sedimentation patterns influenced by vegetation and animal activities were creating depositional environments that favored fossil preservation. The very processes that supported these diverse ecosystems were also responsible for preserving their remains for future study. The taphonomic processes that created exceptional preservation were themselves products of biological activities. Rapid burial events, anoxic conditions, and mineral precipitation were often mediated by living organisms responding to environmental conditions. Diagenetic changes that occurred after burial were influenced by the original biological chemistry of tissues and surrounding sediments. The interplay between organic and inorganic processes determined which details would be preserved and which would be lost over geological time. The research methodologies being developed to study these ancient ecosystems are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in paleontological investigation. New analytical techniques are revealing aspects of prehistoric life that were completely inaccessible to earlier generations of researchers. Computational modeling approaches are allowing scientists to test hypotheses about ancient ecosystem functioning that would be impossible to investigate through direct observation. These virtual laboratories are becoming crucial tools for understanding complex ecological interactions. Machine learning applications are revolutionizing how fossil data is collected, analyzed, and interpreted. Artificial intelligence systems can now recognize patterns in fossil assemblages that might escape human notice, opening up new avenues for discovery. Database integration efforts are connecting fossil collections from around the world, allowing researchers to address questions that require global-scale data sets. These collaborative platforms are accelerating the pace of paleontological discovery. Field techniques are being refined to extract maximum information from fossil localities while minimizing damage to irreplaceable specimens. New excavation methods and documentation procedures are setting higher standards for paleontological research. Laboratory analyses are becoming increasingly sophisticated, with new instruments capable of detecting molecular signatures and isotopic patterns that provide unprecedented insights into ancient biological processes. These technological advances are constantly expanding the types of questions that can be addressed using fossil evidence. Conservation strategies for fossil sites are evolving to balance research access with long-term preservation of paleontological resources. Sustainable collection practices and site management protocols are ensuring that future generations will have access to these scientific treasures. Educational applications of Aguja research are inspiring new approaches to science education at all levels. Interactive exhibits, virtual reality experiences, and hands-on learning opportunities are making paleontology more accessible and engaging for diverse audiences. Public engagement initiatives are building broader support for paleontological research while also fostering scientific literacy in local communities. Citizen science programs are allowing non-specialists to contribute to ongoing research projects. International collaboration networks are facilitating knowledge sharing and resource pooling that benefits researchers worldwide. These partnerships are essential for addressing questions that require expertise and specimens from multiple institutions and countries. Policy implications of paleontological research are increasingly being recognized by government agencies and environmental organizations. The deep time perspectives provided by fossil studies inform contemporary decisions about biodiversity conservation and climate change mitigation. Economic impacts of paleontological research extend far beyond academic institutions. Fossil tourism, educational programs, and museum exhibits generate revenue that supports local communities while promoting scientific awareness. Cultural significance of fossil discoveries influences art, literature, and popular media in ways that shape public perceptions of science and natural history. These ancient creatures have become cultural icons that inspire curiosity about the natural world. Philosophical questions raised by paleontological discoveries challenge our understanding of life's place in the universe and the nature of evolutionary change. These investigations into deep time provide perspectives on existence that transcend immediate human concerns. Future research directions emerging from current studies promise even more spectacular discoveries and insights. New field areas are being explored, innovative analytical methods are being developed, and theoretical frameworks are being refined to address increasingly sophisticated questions. The technological innovations developed for paleontological research often find applications in other fields, from medical imaging to material science. The interdisciplinary nature of modern fossil studies creates opportunities for unexpected discoveries and technological breakthroughs. Collaborative partnerships between paleontologists and researchers in other disciplines are generating new insights that wouldn't be possible within traditional academic boundaries. These interdisciplinary approaches are revolutionizing our understanding of ancient life and its relevance to contemporary challenges. The legacy of current research will undoubtedly influence scientific understanding for generations to come. The specimens being collected, the data being generated, and the insights being developed provide foundations for future researchers who will ask questions we can't yet imagine. The interconnected nature of these ancient food webs reveals relationships so complex they make modern ecosystems look simple by comparison. Picture predatory sharks that didn't just hunt in open water, but actively scavenged dinosaur carcasses that washed into coastal areas. We found shark teeth embedded in the bones of land-dwelling creatures, proving that these marine predators were opportunistic enough to take advantage of any available food source. This wasn't random scavenging either. The positioning of bite marks and the patterns of bone damage suggest these sharks had developed specific techniques for processing terrestrial carrion. They knew exactly where to bite to access the most nutritious organs, and they could strip meat from bones with surgical precision. The marine reptiles sharing these waters were equally impressive in their hunting prowess. Massive mosasaurs with skulls longer than compact cars patrolled the deeper channels, while smaller species dominated the shallow coastal zones. Each had evolved unique strategies for capturing prey, from lightning-fast ambush attacks to prolonged pursuit hunting that could cover miles of ocean. What's particularly fascinating is discovering that some of these marine predators were actively hunting pterosaurs. We've found wing bones with distinctive bite marks that could only have come from aquatic carnivores. Whether these flying reptiles were snatched from the surface while diving for fish or attacked while resting on coastal cliffs remains one of paleontology's most intriguing mysteries. The bony fish communities in Aguja waters were incredibly diverse, ranging from tiny anchovies to massive predatory species that could swallow smaller sharks whole. Some developed armor plating that made them virtually invulnerable to most predators, while others relied on speed and agility to avoid becoming someone else's dinner. The ray species found in these ancient seas had evolved some of the most sophisticated hunting equipment ever documented. Their saw-like rostrums weren't just weapons, they were precision instruments loaded with electroreceptors that could detect the heartbeat of buried prey from several feet away. These living metal detectors could locate hidden fish and crustaceans with accuracy that puts modern technology to shame. Moving from the marine environment toward shore, we encounter creatures that challenge every assumption about prehistoric life. The giant crocodilians of the Aguja Formation weren't just larger versions of modern species. They were evolutionary experiments that pushed the boundaries of what crocodilian anatomy could achieve. Some of these monsters grew to lengths that would make modern saltwater crocodiles look like juveniles. Their skulls were engineered for delivering bone-crushing bites that could penetrate the armor of heavily protected dinosaurs. Bite force estimates suggest these predators could exert pressures exceeding those of Tyrannosaurus rex, making them among the most powerful biters ever to evolve. The longevity data extracted from growth rings in their bones reveals lifespans that extended well beyond those of any modern reptiles. Some individuals may have lived for over half a century, continuously growing throughout their entire lives. Imagine encountering a crocodilian that had been perfecting its hunting skills for 50 years. The accumulated experience and tactical knowledge would have made these creatures nearly unstoppable. Their hunting territories encompassed both aquatic and terrestrial environments, making them true apex predators that could pursue prey anywhere within their domain. Trackway evidence suggests they were capable of sustained terrestrial locomotion, allowing them to hunt far from water when opportunities arose. The turtle diversity found in Aguja deposit spans the entire spectrum from fully aquatic species to completely terrestrial forms. The sea turtles were already showing many of the specialized adaptations we see in modern species, including streamlined shells, powerful flippers, and enlarged salt glands for processing seawater. Some of the land-dwelling species developed shells so thick and heavily armored that they resembled living tanks. These weren't defensive adaptations against small predators. They were engineered to withstand attacks from the massive carnivores that dominated terrestrial environments. The most unusual turtle species had skull shapes so bizarre that paleontologists initially questioned whether they were actually turtles at all. Elongated snouts, enlarged eye sockets, and unusual jaw configurations suggest feeding strategies that have no modern parallels. These creatures were evolutionary pioneers exploring ecological niches that no turtle had ever attempted to exploit. The herbivorous dinosaurs that dominated terrestrial plant communities represent some of the most sophisticated plant processing organisms ever to evolve. The hadrosaurs, or duck-billed dinosaurs, had developed dental batteries containing hundreds of teeth that could grind the toughest vegetation into easily digestible pulp. Their jaw mechanics were more advanced than those of most modern mammals, allowing both vertical crushing and lateral grinding motions that could extract maximum nutrition from even the most fibrous plant materials. Some species had jaw muscles so powerful they could process wood and bark that would be inedible to contemporary herbivores. The diversity of beak shapes among different hadrosaur species reveals dietary specializations that allowed multiple large herbivores to coexist in the same environments. Some had broad, shovel-like beaks, perfect for gathering large quantities of soft vegetation, while others developed narrow, precise tools for selective browsing on specific plant parts. The social behavior evidence preserved in hadrosaur bone beds suggests these creatures lived in complex, multi-generational herds with sophisticated communication systems. Their elaborate head crests weren't just ornamental. They functioned as resonating chambers that could produce specific sound frequencies for long-distance communication. These acoustic signals could coordinate herd movements across vast distances, warn of approaching predators, and facilitate complex social interactions. The variety of crest shapes found in different species suggests each had its own unique voice that prevented confusion between different groups sharing the same habitats. The armored dinosaurs, or ankylosaurs, represent perhaps the most heavily defended land animals ever to evolve. Their bony armor wasn't randomly distributed. It was strategically placed to protect vital organs while maintaining flexibility at joints and limb attachments. This biological engineering created mobile fortresses that could withstand attacks from the largest predators. Some species developed massive tail clubs that functioned as biological wrecking balls. These weapons could deliver devastating blows with enough force to shatter the leg bones of attacking theropods. The precision required to wield these clubs effectively suggests sophisticated neuromuscular coordination and spatial awareness. The forward-pointing shoulder spikes found on some species transformed these creatures into living battering rams. When threatened, they could charge at predators with enough momentum to impale or seriously injure anything foolish enough to attack head-on. This wasn't passive defense. It was active retaliation that could turn prey into predator in seconds. The horned dinosaurs, or Ceratopsians, found in Aguja rocks, display an incredible variety of frill and horn configurations. Each species seems to have developed its own unique combination of defensive and display features, suggesting rapid evolutionary diversification. driven by both predator pressure and sexual selection. The function of these elaborate head ornaments goes far beyond simple defense. The frills were likely brightly colored display structures used for species recognition, mate attraction, and social status signaling. The patterns and colors would have created visual spectacles that rivaled the most elaborate bird displays we see today. Some of the smaller ceratopsian species appear to have been endemic to the Aguja region, meaning they evolved specifically in this area and are found nowhere else in the world. This suggests that geographic barriers were creating isolated populations that rapidly diverged along independent evolutionary pathways. The ecological segregation observed among different ceratopsian species reveals sophisticated niche partitioning that allowed multiple large herbivores to coexist. Some specialized in ground-level vegetation, others focused on mid-story plants, and still others developed feeding strategies for reaching high canopy materials. The small dinosaur communities included some remarkable specialists that filled ecological roles similar to many modern mammals and birds. The dome-headed dinosaurs, or Pachycephalosaurs, had skulls so thick they could engage in headbutting contests that would hospitalize modern animals. These skull-ramming behaviors weren't random violence. They were ritualized competitions for mates and territory that required precise timing and positioning. The damage patterns preserved in fossil skulls suggest these contests were frequent and intense, with some individuals bearing evidence of multiple head-to-head collisions. The bird-like theropods represent crucial transitional forms between dinosaurs and modern birds. Some were already experimenting with powered flight, while others remained terrestrial, but had developed feathers for insulation, display, or primitive gliding capabilities. These creatures had enlarged brains relative to their body size, suggesting cognitive abilities that approached those of modern birds. Their sensory systems were highly developed, with enhanced vision for detecting prey and enlarged olfactory regions for tracking scents across long distances. The diversity of feeding strategies among small theropods reveals ecological specializations that allowed numerous carnivorous species to coexist without direct competition. Some were fast pursuit predators that chased down small prey, while others were patient ambush hunters that waited for perfect opportunities to strike. Claw morphology among these species was incredibly diverse, with each type optimized for specific hunting techniques. Some had recurved talons for grasping struggling prey, while others developed straight, dagger-like claws for delivering precise killing blows. A few species even had specialized digits for probing crevices and extracting hidden prey items. The omnivorous adaptations found in several small theropod species revealed dietary flexibility that would have provided significant survival advantages during environmental fluctuations. These creatures could switch between hunting small animals and foraging for fruits, seeds, and other plant materials as availability changed. Evidence suggests that some species were primarily insectivorous, filling ecological niches similar to modern anteaters or pangolins. Their elongated snouts and specialized teeth were perfectly adapted for capturing and processing arthropod prey that other predators couldn't access. The early mammal communities living alongside these dinosaurs were remarkably diverse despite their small body sizes. These creatures had already evolved many of the sophisticated sensory and behavioral adaptations that would eventually allow mammals to dominate post-extinction ecosystems. Their nocturnal lifestyles allowed them to exploit resources and habitats that were unavailable to diurnal dinosaurs. Enhanced hearing and smell gave them significant advantages in darkness, while their small size allowed them to hide in refuges too small for larger predators to access. Some mammalian species appear to have been arboreal specialists that rarely descended to ground level. Their grasping hands and feet were perfectly adapted for life in the forest canopy, where they could feed on fruits, insects, and other resources without competing directly with terrestrial species. The dental diversity found among Aguja mammals suggests feeding specializations that ranged from strict insectivory to omnivorous diets that included fruits, seeds, and possibly even small vertebrates. This ecological flexibility would prove crucial for surviving the environmental changes that lay ahead. The plant communities supporting all this animal diversity were undergoing their own evolutionary revolution. The flowering plants, or angiosperms, were rapidly diversifying and developing new strategies for reproduction, defense, and nutrient acquisition that would fundamentally reshape terrestrial ecosystems. The co-evolutionary relationships between plants and their animal partners were already incredibly sophisticated. Some flowering species had developed complex chemical defenses that could deter most herbivores, while simultaneously producing attractive fruits that encouraged seed dispersal by selected animal species. The pollination strategies employed by Cretaceous flowers were diverse and specialized, with some species clearly adapted for attracting specific types of insects or other small animals. These mutualistic relationships were creating the foundation for the incredible diversity of flowering plants we see today. Forest structure during the Aguja period was more complex than most modern ecosystems, with multiple canopy layers supporting different communities of plants and animals. The understory was dominated by ferns and cycads, while the emergent layer consisted of massive conifers that towered over everything else. The seasonal patterns preserved in tree ring data reveal climate cycles that were more extreme than those experienced by modern forests. Wet seasons brought incredible biological productivity, while dry periods created stress conditions that eliminated less adapted species and opened opportunities for evolutionary innovation. The fire ecology of Aguja forests was maintained through complex interactions between climate, vegetation, and animal behaviors. Some plant species had evolved specific adaptations for surviving and even benefiting from periodic burning, while certain animal species appear to have been attracted to recently burned areas. The soil communities that supported these diverse forest ecosystems were incredibly rich in organic matter and hosted complex networks of fungi, bacteria, and other microorganisms. These underground communities were essential for nutrient cycling and plant health, creating the biological infrastructure that supported such massive plant productivity. Mycorrhizal networks connected individual plants across vast areas, allowing resource sharing and communication that enhanced the survival of entire forest communities. These fungal superhighways could transport nutrients, water, and even chemical warning signals between plants separated by considerable distances. The aquatic plant communities in rivers, lakes, and coastal marshes were equally diverse and provided crucial habitat and food resources for numerous animal species. Some aquatic plants had evolved specialized structures for surviving in brackish water where freshwater systems met marine environments. The transition zones between different habitat types were particularly rich in species diversity, as they provided resources and conditions that supported organisms adapted to multiple environmental types. These ecotones were evolutionary hotspots where new species frequently arose through adaptation to intermediate conditions. The biogeochemical cycles operating in Aguja ecosystems were far more intense than those found in modern environments. The warm, humid climate accelerated decomposition rates and nutrient cycling, creating biological productivity that supported incredible numbers of large-bodied consumers. Carbon sequestration by the extensive forest systems was occurring at rates that helped regulate global atmospheric composition during this greenhouse period. These natural carbon sinks were crucial for maintaining climate stability, despite volcanic activity and other sources of atmospheric carbon dioxide. The nitrogen cycling processes mediated by soil microorganisms in plant communities were creating soil fertility that could support vegetation growth rates rarely seen in contemporary ecosystems. This biological nitrogen fixation was essential for maintaining the productivity that supported such diverse animal communities. Phosphorus availability, often a limiting factor in modern ecosystems, appears to have been abundant in Aguja environments due to active weathering of phosphate-rich rocks and efficient recycling by biological communities. This nutrient abundance contributed to the exceptional biological productivity of these ancient ecosystems. The water cycling patterns created by extensive forest cover generated regional climate conditions that were largely self-sustaining. Evapotranspiration from vegetation created precipitation patterns that maintained optimal growing conditions across vast areas. The landscape engineering accomplished by large herbivorous dinosaurs created habitat mosaics that supported species requiring different environmental conditions. Trampling, browsing, and other disturbance activities maintained ecological diversity that might otherwise have been lost to competitive exclusion. These ecosystem engineers were creating and maintaining wetlands, grasslands, and forest clearings that provided essential habitat for numerous species that couldn't survive in dense forest environments. Their activities were crucial for maintaining landscape-scale biodiversity. The seed dispersal services provided by various animal species were essential for maintaining plant community diversity and allowing rapid colonization of disturbed areas. Large herbivores could transport seeds across vast distances, creating genetic connections between widely separated plant populations. Pollination networks involving insects, birds, and possibly even small mammals were already incredibly complex and specialized. The extinction of key pollinator species could have cascading effects throughout entire plant communities, demonstrating the interconnected nature of these ancient ecosystems. The predator-prey dynamics operating at multiple trophic levels created complex feedback loops that regulated population sizes and maintained ecological balance. Top predators controlled herbivore populations, which in turn influenced plant community composition and structure. Scavenging networks involving everything from insects to massive crocodilians ensured that nutrients from dead organisms were rapidly recycled back into the ecosystem. These decomposer communities were essential for maintaining the nutrient flows that supported such high biological productivity. The migration patterns of various species created seasonal resource pulses that affected entire ecological communities. The arrival of migratory herds could trigger breeding seasons in predator populations and influence the timing of plant reproduction and growth. The genetic diversity maintained within and between populations was crucial for the evolutionary flexibility that allowed rapid adaptation to changing environmental conditions. Gene flow between populations prevented inbreeding depression while still allowing local adaptation to specific environmental conditions. The population dynamics of different species were influenced by complex interactions involving predation pressure, resource availability, disease, and climatic fluctuations. Some species maintained stable populations through density-dependent regulation, while others experienced dramatic population cycles. The community assembly processes that created such diverse ecological communities involved complex interactions between colonization, extinction, and evolutionary adaptation. New species were constantly arising through adaptive radiation, while others were lost through competitive exclusion or environmental change. The keystone species effects documented in these ancient ecosystems reveal how certain organisms had disproportionate influences on community structure and ecosystem function. The loss of these critical species could trigger cascading changes that affected entire ecological networks. The ecosystem services provided by various species were crucial for maintaining environmental health and productivity. Primary producers, decomposers, pollinators, and seed dispersers created the biological infrastructure that supported diverse ecological communities. The resilience mechanisms that allowed these ecosystems to recover from disturbances were incredibly sophisticated. Redundancy in ecological functions, seed banks, and refugial populations provided insurance against environmental catastrophes that might otherwise cause ecosystem collapse. The stability of these complex ecosystems was maintained through multiple feedback mechanisms that prevented any single species or process from dominating. This biological regulation created the environmental conditions that supported such incredible diversity and productivity. The evolutionary innovations first appearing in Aguja ecosystems laid the groundwork for many of the biological processes and structures that characterize modern life. These ancient experiments in biological organization provided the foundation for the ecosystems we see today. The extinction selectivity patterns observed at the end of the Cretaceous reveal which characteristics made some species more vulnerable to environmental change than others. Large body size, specialized diets, and limited dispersal abilities were often associated with higher extinction risks. The recovery patterns following the mass extinction show how biological communities rebuilt themselves from surviving lineages. Some groups rapidly diversified to fill empty ecological niches, while others took millions of years to recover their former diversity. The lessons preserved in these ancient rocks provide crucial insights for understanding how modern ecosystems might respond to contemporary environmental challenges. The deep time perspective offered by paleontology reveals patterns and processes that operate over timescales far longer than human observation. The conservation implications of this research extend far beyond academic paleontology. Understanding how past ecosystems functioned and responded to environmental change provides guidance for protecting and managing modern biological diversity in an era of rapid global change. The technological advances that continue to revolutionize our ability to study these ancient worlds promise even more spectacular discoveries in the years ahead. Each new analytical technique opens up possibilities for understanding aspects of prehistoric life that were previously inaccessible to scientific investigation. The collaborative networks that have developed around Aguja research serve as models for how international cooperation can advance scientific understanding while transcending political and cultural boundaries. These partnerships demonstrate the power of shared curiosity and common goals to unite researchers from around the world. The educational impact of these discoveries continues to inspire new generations of scientists while building public appreciation for the importance of paleontological research. The stories preserved in these ancient rocks capture imaginations and demonstrate the incredible creativity and resilience of life on Earth. The philosophical implications of studying deep time challenge our understanding of humanity's place in the broader sweep of evolutionary history. These ancient ecosystems remind us that our species represents just one brief chapter in the ongoing story of life on Earth. As we continue to explore and understand the Aguja Formation, we're gaining insights that inform not just our knowledge of the past, but our preparation for the future. The creatures and ecosystems preserved in these rocks provide crucial data for understanding how life responds to environmental change and what we might expect as our planet continues to evolve. The preservation of behavioral sequences in Aguja trackways tell stories that read like ancient documentaries frozen in stone. We can follow the exact footsteps of predators stalking their prey across mud flats that dried under Cretaceous suns. Some sequences show the moment when hunts began, with walking gaits suddenly shifting to running strides as carnivores accelerated toward their targets. What makes these trackway narratives particularly compelling is when we find evidence of successful hunts preserved in the geological record. Predator footprints that suddenly stop are sometimes accompanied by drag marks and disturbed sediment patterns that suggest struggle and capture. These prehistoric crime scenes provide direct evidence of predator-prey interactions that we can only infer from modern observations. The social dynamics revealed through multiple trackway sequences show that pack hunting behaviors were already well developed among certain theropod species. Parallel trackways suggest coordinated group movements, while converging paths indicate strategic positioning that would have been crucial for bringing down large prey animals. Some of the most fascinating trackway evidence shows adult animals accompanied by juveniles of various sizes. These family group movements suggest parental care strategies that extended well beyond simple nest protection. Young individuals were apparently learning hunting techniques and territorial navigation through direct experience with their parents. The seasonal timing of these trackway formations reveals behavioral patterns that were synchronized with environmental cycles. Migration routes, breeding congregations, and feeding aggregations all left distinctive signatures in the sedimentary record that allow us to reconstruct annual behavioral rhythms. Territory-marking behaviors are preserved in some locations through repeated trackway patterns that suggest regular patrolling of specific areas. These behavioral territories were often centered around crucial resources like water sources or particularly productive feeding areas. The biomechanical analysis of trackway data provides insights into locomotory capabilities that complement skeletal evidence. Stride lengths, foot pressure distributions, and gait patterns all contribute to our understanding of how these creatures moved through their environments. Swimming trackways preserved in fine sediments show that many supposedly terrestrial species were actually comfortable in aquatic environments. These underwater footprints reveal locomotory strategies that have no modern parallels among large terrestrial vertebrates. The taphonomic conditions that preserved these behavioral sequences were incredibly specific and rare. The right combination of sediment composition, moisture content, and burial timing was necessary to create permanent records of these fleeting behavioral moments. Coprolite assemblages found throughout Aguja deposits provide dietary information that goes far beyond simple species identification. The size, shape, and internal structure of fossilized dung reveal digestive strategies, feeding frequencies, and even seasonal dietary changes. Some coprolites contain partially digested bones that show distinctive bite marks, revealing predator feeding behaviors and prey processing techniques. These specimens provide direct evidence of which species were eating, which creating food web reconstructions with unprecedented accuracy. Parasitic remains found within coprolites reveal disease ecology patterns that affected entire ecosystems. The diversity and abundance of intestinal parasites provide insights into population densities, social behaviors, and environmental stress levels. Plant remains in herbivore coprolites show seasonal dietary shifts that correspond to flowering and fruiting cycles preserved in the paleobotanical record. This correlation between animal feeding behavior and plant reproductive timing reveals co-evolutionary relationships. The chemical analysis of coprolite matrices provides information about digestive efficiency and metabolic rates. Nitrogen isotope ratios reveal trophic positions with precision that allows detailed food web reconstruction. Gastroliths associated with various dinosaur species show deliberate stone selection behaviors that required sophisticated understanding of material properties. These stomach stones were chosen based on hardness, shape, and availability, suggesting cognitive abilities that exceeded simple instinct. The wear patterns on gastroliths reveal the mechanical forces operating within dinosaur digestive systems. Polish patterns and fracture surfaces provide insights into gastric mill efficiency and digestive processing times. Some gastroliths show evidence of transport over considerable distances, suggesting that certain species made specific journeys to obtain optimal grinding stones. This behavior indicates planning abilities and geographic knowledge that approached those of modern intelligent animals. The distribution patterns of gastroliths around skeletal remains provide information about digestive system anatomy and stomach positioning within the body cavity. This data helps reconstruct soft tissue arrangements that are rarely preserved in the fossil record. Skin impression fossils found throughout Aguja rocks reveal integumentary structures that were far more diverse and complex than simple scales. Some specimens preserve evidence of coloration patterns, skin texture variations, and even primitive feather-like structures. The preservation of these delicate surface features required extraordinary taphonomic conditions that captured microscopic details of skin architecture. These specimens provide direct evidence of external appearance that transforms our understanding of how these creatures looked in life. Scale patterns preserved in skin impressions show regional variations that may have been related to thermoregulation, camouflage, or display functions. Different body regions had distinctive scale types that were optimized for specific functions. Some skin impressions preserve evidence of seasonal molting or skin-shedding behaviors similar to those seen in modern reptiles. These growth-related changes provide insights into developmental processes and physiological cycles. The chemical analysis of organic compounds preserved within skin impressions reveals pigment molecules that allow reconstruction of actual coloration patterns. These discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of dinosaur appearance and visual communication. Blood vessel networks preserved in some bone samples reveal circulation patterns that supported incredibly high metabolic rates. The density and organization of vascular channels provide direct evidence of physiological capabilities that exceeded those of most modern reptiles. Bone histology studies show growth patterns that varied dramatically between species and even between individuals within populations. These microscopic features provide insights into life, history strategies, and environmental responses. Seasonal growth markers preserved in bone tissue reveal annual cycles of resource availability and environmental stress. These biological calendars provide precise chronological information about individual lifespans and population dynamics. Pathological conditions preserved in bone samples document the harsh realities of prehistoric life. Evidence of infections, injuries, and parasitic infestations provides insights into disease ecology and healing capabilities. The bone chemistry analysis reveals dietary information that complements other lines of evidence. Trace element concentrations and isotopic signatures provide data about food sources and trophic relationships. Neural tissue impressions found in several skulls provide direct evidence of brain organization and cognitive capabilities. Endocranial casts reveal sensory processing regions and neural pathway arrangements that indicate behavioral complexity. Inner ear structures, preserved in some specimens, reveal balance and spatial orientation capabilities. The size and shape of semicircular canals provide insights into locomotory abilities and habitat preferences. Olfactory region development, shown in brain endocasts, reveals the importance of chemical communication in these ancient ecosystems. Some species had enlarged smell processing areas that exceeded those of most modern animals. Visual processing regions preserved in neural tissue impressions show that many species had sophisticated vision capabilities. Some nocturnal species had enlarged optical processing areas that supported enhanced night vision. Acoustic processing structures found in some skulls reveal communication capabilities that were far more complex than simple vocalizations. Some species had neural architectures that could process complex sound patterns and frequency modulations. The reproductive biology evidence preserved in Aguja rocks reveals breeding strategies that were incredibly diverse and sophisticated. Fossilized eggs, nests, and embryonic development provide insights into parental care and life history evolution. Egg structure analysis reveals incubation strategies that range from simple burial to complex temperature regulation systems. Some species built elaborate nests with thermal management capabilities that rival those of modern birds. Embryonic development sequences preserved in fossilized eggs show growth patterns and developmental timing that vary dramatically between species. These data provide insights into the evolution of developmental strategies. Nesting site geology reveals habitat preferences and environmental requirements for successful reproduction. Some species chose locations with specific thermal properties or protection characteristics. Eggshell microstructure analysis provides information about gas exchange rates and incubation periods. These data help reconstruct reproductive cycles and parental investment strategies. The juvenile fossil record shows that many species underwent dramatic morphological changes during development. Young individuals often had completely different ecological roles than their adult counterparts. Size variation within age classes reveals growth rate differences that may have been related to environmental conditions or genetic factors. Some individuals grew much faster than others within the same populations. Dental development patterns preserved in juvenile skulls show that tooth replacement strategies were already well established in young animals. These data provide insights into feeding ecology development. Skeletal fusion patterns in growing animals reveal developmental timing and maturation rates. Some species reached adult size quickly, while others had extended juvenile periods. The behavioral development evidence suggests that learning and cultural transmission were important components of species success. Young animals appear to have acquired crucial survival skills through interaction with adults. Social structure evidence from bone bed assemblages reveals community organizations that were far more complex than simple aggregations. Age and size distributions suggest hierarchical systems and cooperative behaviors. Seasonal aggregation patterns show that many species came together during specific times of year for breeding, migration, or resource exploitation. These gatherings would have created spectacular wildlife concentrations. Territory size estimates based on fossil distributions reveal that some species maintained enormous home ranges that encompassed diverse habitat types. These territories provided access to seasonal resources and breeding sites. Population density calculations from fossil abundance data suggest that some areas supported incredible numbers of large animals. These concentrations would have created intense ecological interactions and competition. The genetic diversity inferred from morphological variation shows that most populations maintained high levels of genetic variation through gene flow and large population sizes. This diversity was crucial for evolutionary flexibility. Migration corridor evidence reveals seasonal movement patterns that connected distant ecosystems and maintained genetic exchange between populations. These ancient highways were crucial for species survival and evolution. Dispersal mechanism analysis shows how different species colonized new habitats and established populations in previously unoccupied areas. Some relied on active movement, while others used passive transport opportunities. Colonization success patterns reveal which species characteristics were most important for establishing populations in new environments. Behavioral flexibility and dietary generalization were often crucial factors. Population bottleneck evidence from genetic diversity patterns shows that some species survived environmental crises through small refugial populations. These survivors then recolonized larger areas during favorable periods. The evolutionary innovation patterns documented in Aguja rocks show how new adaptations arose and spread through populations. Some innovations provided immediate advantages, while others became important only later. Adaptive radiation sequences preserved in the fossil record show how single ancestral species gave rise to multiple descendants adapted to different ecological niches. These diversification events were often rapid and dramatic. Evolutionary constraint evidence reveals which anatomical and physiological features limited evolutionary possibilities. Some lineages were channeled along specific evolutionary pathways by their inherited characteristics. Convergent evolution examples show how similar environmental pressures produced similar solutions in unrelated lineages. These repeated experiments demonstrate the predictability of evolutionary processes. Co-evolutionary dynamics between different species created feedback loops that drove increasingly sophisticated adaptations. These biological arms races produced some of the most remarkable evolutionary innovations preserved in the fossil record. The extinction vulnerability patterns observed in Aguja faunus reveal which characteristics made some species more susceptible to environmental changes. Specialization often increased extinction risk, while generalization provided protection. Recovery patterns following environmental disturbances show how ecosystems rebuilt themselves after catastrophic events. Some groups rapidly diversified, while others required longer recovery periods. Ecological replacement patterns show how extinct species were replaced by others that filled similar ecological roles. These functional substitutions maintained ecosystem stability despite taxonomic turnover. The conservation lessons derived from these ancient ecosystems provide crucial guidance for protecting modern biodiversity. Understanding how past communities responded to environmental change informs contemporary conservation strategies. Habitat corridor importance is demonstrated by the success of species that could move between different environments. Connectivity was crucial for maintaining genetic diversity and population viability. Ecosystem service continuity shows how essential functions like pollination, seed dispersal, and nutrient cycling were maintained despite species turnover. Functional redundancy provided insurance against ecological collapse. Keystone species identification reveals which organisms had disproportionate effects on ecosystem structure and function. Protecting these critical species was essential for maintaining entire ecological networks. The climate change responses documented in the fossil record show how species and ecosystems adapted to changing environmental conditions. Some groups thrived in changing climates, while others struggled to adapt. Sea level fluctuation effects on coastal ecosystems reveal how physical environmental changes influenced biological communities. Rising and falling sea levels created opportunities for some species while eliminating others. Volcanic disturbance responses show how biological communities dealt with catastrophic events that dramatically altered local environments. Recovery patterns varied depending on disturbance intensity and duration. The technological innovations developed for studying these ancient ecosystems continue to advance our analytical capabilities. New methods for extracting information from fossils are constantly being developed and refined. Molecular preservation research is revealing new possibilities for recovering biological molecules from ancient specimens. These techniques may eventually allow direct analysis of proteins and other organic compounds. Imaging technology advances are allowing non-destructive analysis of fossil specimens. These methods preserve valuable specimens while revealing internal structures and composition. Chemical analysis improvements are providing increasingly detailed information about ancient environmental conditions and biological processes. Isotopic and trace element analyses are becoming more precise and informative. Database integration efforts are connecting fossil collections and research results from around the world. These collaborative platforms are accelerating the pace of paleontological discovery and interpretation. Computational modeling applications are allowing researchers to test hypotheses about ancient ecosystem functioning. These virtual experiments provide insights that would be impossible to obtain through direct observation. Educational outreach programs are bringing these discoveries to increasingly diverse audiences. Museum exhibits, online resources, and educational materials are inspiring new generations of scientists and science enthusiasts. Public engagement initiatives are building broader support for paleontological research while fostering scientific literacy. These programs demonstrate the relevance of deep-time studies to contemporary environmental challenges. International collaboration networks are facilitating knowledge sharing and resource pooling among researchers worldwide. These partnerships are essential for addressing complex questions that require global perspectives. Conservation applications of paleontological research are informing contemporary environmental management decisions. Deep-time perspectives provide crucial context for understanding current biodiversity patterns and extinction risks. The economic implications of this research extend far beyond academic institutions. Fossil tourism, educational programs, and technological innovations generate economic benefits while promoting scientific understanding. Cultural impacts of paleontological discoveries influence public perceptions of science and natural history. These ancient worlds capture imaginations and inspire curiosity about the natural world. Future research directions promise even more spectacular discoveries as new field areas are explored and analytical techniques are developed. The potential for new insights remains virtually unlimited. The philosophical implications of studying deep time challenge our understanding of humanity's place in the broader context of life on Earth. These investigations provide perspectives on existence that transcend immediate human concerns. As we continue to uncover the secrets preserved in Aguja rocks, we're building a more complete picture of how life has evolved and adapted over geological time. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of biological evolution and ecosystem development. The interconnections revealed through this research demonstrate that understanding the past is crucial for preparing for the future. The lessons encoded in these ancient ecosystems provide guidance for navigating the environmental challenges that lie ahead. The legacy of current research efforts will undoubtedly influence scientific understanding for generations to come. The foundations being laid today will support future discoveries that we can't yet imagine. The collaborative spirit that characterizes modern paleontological research serves as a model for how science can unite people across cultural and political boundaries in pursuit of knowledge. These shared investigations into our planet's history demonstrate the power of curiosity to bring diverse communities together. The technological innovations emerging from this research have applications that extend far beyond paleontology. Methods developed for analyzing ancient life are finding uses in medicine, materials, science, and environmental monitoring. The educational value of these discoveries continues to inspire students and researchers to pursue careers in science. The wonder and excitement generated by these ancient worlds motivate new generations to ask questions and seek answers about the natural world. The conservation insights gained from studying ancient ecosystems provide crucial guidance for protecting modern biodiversity. Understanding how past communities responded to environmental challenges helps inform strategies for preserving contemporary ecological systems. As our analytical capabilities continue to advance, we can expect even more remarkable discoveries from the Aguja Formation and similar fossil deposits around the world. The potential for new insights into ancient life and its relevance to modern challenges remains virtually unlimited. The preservation of ancient DNA fragments in some Aguja specimens represents one of the most exciting frontiers in paleogenetics. While complete genomes remain beyond our reach for fossils, this old, even tiny molecular fragments provide revolutionary insights into evolutionary relationships that were completely invisible just decades ago. These genetic ghosts whisper stories about kinship patterns and population structures that challenge everything we thought we knew about prehistoric biodiversity. What makes these molecular discoveries particularly remarkable is how they reveal hidden diversity within what appeared to be single species. Some fossils that look nearly identical actually represent distinct evolutionary lineages that diverged millions of years apart. This cryptic speciation suggests that ancient ecosystems were even more diverse than the already staggering variety visible in the fossil record. The protein sequences recovered from exceptionally preserved specimens are rewriting textbooks about ancient physiology and metabolism. Collagen molecules that survived 80 million years still retain enough structural information to reveal growth rates, stress responses, and even seasonal physiological changes that these creatures experienced during their lifetimes. These biochemical time capsules preserve evidence of metabolic strategies that have no modern equivalents. Some species appear to have switched between different metabolic modes depending on environmental conditions, essentially running their biological engines at variable speeds to match resource availability and thermal conditions. The amino acid racemization patterns found in ancient proteins function like molecular thermometers that recorded the exact temperatures these creatures experienced. This biochemical instrumentation reveals that Aguja environments weren't uniformly tropical, but included complex temperature gradients that supported remarkable ecological diversity within relatively small geographic areas. Isotopic analysis of organic compounds preserved within fossilized tissues provides dietary information so precise it reads like ancient restaurant menus. We can determine not just what these creatures ate, but when they ate it, how often they fed, and even which specific plants or prey species they preferred during different seasons. The carbon isotope signatures locked within tooth enamel reveal dietary shifts that occurred throughout individual lifespans, showing how feeding strategies changed as animals grew from juveniles to adults. Some species underwent complete dietary revolutions, shifting from one trophic level to entirely different ecological roles as they matured. Nitrogen isotope ratios provide trophic position data that allows reconstruction of food webs with unprecedented accuracy. These chemical fingerprints reveal predator-prey relationships and energy flow patterns that were completely invisible to earlier generations of paleontologists studying only bones and teeth. Strontium isotope analysis tracks individual movements across ancient landscapes with GPS-like precision. These chemical breadcrumbs reveal migration routes, territorial boundaries, and lifetime travel patterns that paint detailed pictures of how these creatures use their environments. The trace element chemistry preserved in fossilized bones and teeth provides environmental monitoring data that spans geological time. Heavy metal concentrations reveal pollution levels from ancient volcanic activity, while rare earth elements indicate the types of bedrock that were weathering in prehistoric watersheds. Paleomagnetic signatures locked within Aguja sediments reveal not just continental positions, but also magnetic field intensity variations that may have influenced atmospheric chemistry and radiation levels. These cosmic forces created environmental pressures that drove evolutionary innovations in unexpected directions. The sedimentological analysis reveals depositional environments that were far more dynamic and complex than simple river or coastal settings. We're looking at intricate deltic systems where multiple river channels meandered through vast floodplains, creating habitat mosaics that supported incredible biological diversity. Storm deposit layers document the frequency and intensity of ancient hurricanes and other extreme weather events. These catastrophic episodes created the rapid burial conditions necessary for exceptional fossil preservation, while also revealing how prehistoric ecosystems responded to environmental disasters. Paleosol chemistry, preserved in ancient soil horizons, tells stories about atmospheric composition, precipitation patterns, and vegetation density that complement the biological evidence. These buried soils contain fossilized root systems and microbial communities that help reconstruct underground ecosystems. The diagenetic processes that transformed organic tissues into stone created natural laboratories for understanding mineral replacement and chemical preservation. Different burial environments produced different types of fossilization, allowing comparative studies of preservation mechanisms. Fluid inclusion analysis of minerals within fossilized bones provides direct samples of Cretaceous groundwater chemistry. These microscopic time capsules contain actual ancient water that allows analysis of oceanic composition and atmospheric chemistry with remarkable precision. The tectonic forces active during Aguja deposition created constantly changing landscapes that drove evolutionary innovation through geographic isolation and reconnection. Mountain building episodes separated populations that evolved independently, while erosional events brought disparate communities back into contact. Fault systems influenced drainage patterns, climate zones, and migration corridors in ways that were crucial for creating the environmental heterogeneity necessary to support such extraordinary biological diversity. These geological features functioned as evolutionary engines that generated new species through geographic isolation. Volcanic ash layers provide not just chronological markers, but also document the intensity and frequency of explosive eruptions that periodically disrupted regional ecosystems. These volcanic events created both challenges and opportunities for affected biological communities. Hydrothermal activity associated with volcanic systems created unique chemical environments that supported specialized biological communities. Hot springs and mineral-rich seeps provided oases of unusual chemistry that allowed certain species to exploit resources unavailable elsewhere. The metamorphic processes that affected some Aguja rocks revealed deep crustal forces that were reshaping the continent. These thermal and pressure changes sometimes enhanced fossil preservation by creating exceptionally durable rock matrices that protected delicate specimens. Economic geology studies reveal hydrocarbon deposits that formed from ancient organic matter, providing insights into carbon cycle processes operating during greenhouse climate periods. These fossil fuel accumulations represent stored solar energy from Cretaceous photosynthesis. Uranium concentrations within certain rock layers formed through groundwater processes that operated millions of years after original sediment deposition. These radioactive accumulations provide natural laboratories for studying long-term geochemical evolution and environmental change. Modern groundwater systems flowing through Aguja rocks carry dissolved minerals and organic compounds that reflect both ancient and contemporary environmental processes. These hydrogeological studies help understand how fossil preservation continues evolving over geological time. The engineering properties of these sedimentary rocks have important implications for construction and land use planning throughout the region. The same structural features that preserve fossils also influence slope stability, foundation design, and erosion patterns affecting modern communities. archaeological investigations reveal how indigenous peoples interacted with these landscapes and potentially collected fossils for ceremonial or practical purposes. Human occupation sites provide cultural context that extends the significance of these geological formations beyond purely scientific interest. Ethnographic studies document traditional knowledge about fossil localities and geological processes that complement scientific research. Indigenous names for rock formations and fossil types often encode observations about geological relationships that weren't recognized by Western science until much later. The cultural impact of these discoveries influences art, literature, and popular media in ways that extend far beyond academic paleontology. These ancient creatures inspire creative works that help build public support for continued scientific research and environmental conservation. Tourism potential creates both opportunities and challenges for local communities. Sustainable visitor programs can provide economic benefits while supporting conservation efforts, but require careful management to prevent damage to irreplaceable fossil resources. Legal frameworks governing fossil collection involve complex interactions between multiple jurisdictional levels. These regulatory challenges require innovative approaches that balance scientific access with resource protection and community rights, while respecting international boundaries. Intellectual property considerations surrounding major discoveries raise important questions about ownership and control of paleontological knowledge. International collaborations must navigate legal and ethical terrain while ensuring research benefits are shared equitably among participating institutions and countries. Technological innovations developed for fossil studies have applications extending far beyond paleontology. Advanced imaging techniques, chemical analysis methods, and computational approaches find uses in medical research, materials science, and environmental monitoring applications. Data management systems required for modern research handle everything from field photographs to complex geochemical analyses. These digital archives become crucial resources for researchers worldwide, enabling collaborative investigations that would be impossible without sophisticated information-sharing platforms. Machine learning applications promise to revolutionize fossil identification, classification, and interpretation. Artificial intelligence systems trained on thousands of specimen images can recognize patterns and relationships that human researchers might overlook, accelerating discovery and analysis. Virtual reality reconstructions allow researchers and public audiences to experience these ancient worlds in previously impossible ways. These immersive technologies transform both scientific investigation and public education, making deep time accessible to broader audiences. Climate modeling studies incorporating paleo-environmental data help scientists understand how Earth's climate system responds to different atmospheric compositions and continental configurations. These ancient analogs provide crucial information for predicting future environmental changes. Biodiversity patterns reveal ecosystem dynamics operating over timescales far longer than any contemporary ecological study. These deep-time perspectives on community assembly and species interactions provide fundamental insights into how biological diversity generates and maintains itself. Extinction risk assessment methods developed for modern conservation biology apply retrospectively to ancient faunas to understand which characteristics made some species more vulnerable to environmental changes. These evolutionary lessons have direct applications for protecting currently endangered species. Restoration ecology principles derived from studying ancient ecosystems provide guidance for reconstructing damaged modern environments. Understanding how prehistoric communities recovered from disturbances informs contemporary habitat restoration projects and ecosystem management strategies. Invasion biology insights from fossil assemblages reveal how species colonized new habitats and established themselves within existing communities. These ancient invasion events provide natural experiments that enhance understanding of modern biological invasions and their ecological consequences. Coevolutionary dynamics preserved in the fossil record show how different lineages influenced each other's evolution over millions of years. These extended evolutionary partnerships and arms races provide insights into processes that generate biological complexity and innovation. Phylogenetic studies based on new specimens continue revising understanding of evolutionary relationships among major vertebrate groups. Recent fossil discoveries regularly overturn established ideas about when and how different lineages diverged from their common ancestors. Morphometric analyses reveal patterns of morphological evolution operating over geological timescales. These quantitative studies of shape change provide insights into developmental and genetic mechanisms driving evolutionary transformation across deep time. Functional morphology studies use engineering principles to understand how ancient creatures solved biological problems. These biomechanical analyses reveal physical constraints and opportunities that shaped evolutionary innovation throughout Earth's history. Developmental biology insights from embryonic and juvenile fossils show how changes in growth patterns produced incredible morphological diversity visible in adult forms. These evolutionary developmental studies connect genetics, development, and evolution in previously impossible ways. Behavioral ecology inferences drawn from fossil evidence reveal social systems and ecological strategies that were far more sophisticated than traditionally assumed. Trackway analyses, bone bed studies, and taphonomic patterns contribute to understanding how these creatures lived and interacted. Community ecology patterns preserved in fossil assemblages show how species diversity and ecosystem structure changed over time in response to environmental fluctuations. These paleoecological studies provide baselines for understanding natural ecosystem dynamics over geological timescales. Biogeographic analyses reveal how geographic barriers and connections influence distribution and evolution of different lineages. These historical biogeographic studies help explain how modern biodiversity patterns were established and maintained. Astrobiology implications extend far beyond Earth-based paleontology. Extreme environments and unusual preservation conditions documented in these rocks provide analogs for understanding how life might evolve and be preserved on other planets. Geomicrobiology studies reveal crucial roles that microorganisms played in fossilization processes and ancient ecosystem functioning. These microscopic communities were essential components of prehistoric food webs and biogeochemical cycles that supported larger organisms. Environmental monitoring applications of techniques developed for fossil research help scientists track modern environmental changes with unprecedented precision. Methods used for analyzing ancient climate proxies now apply to understanding contemporary pollution and habitat degradation. Materials, science applications of biomineralization processes observed in fossils, inspire new approaches to engineering strong, lightweight structures. Natural nanotechnology preserved in ancient specimens provides blueprints for advanced materials design and manufacturing. Computational paleontology methods push boundaries of what's possible in fossil analysis. High-performance computing clusters model ancient ecosystem dynamics and test evolutionary hypotheses with previously unimaginable sophistication and detail. Crowdsourcing initiatives engaging citizen scientists democratize paleontology and accelerate discovery pace. Online platforms allow volunteers worldwide to contribute to fossil identification, data collection, and hypothesis testing in meaningful ways. Interdisciplinary collaborations break down traditional barriers between scientific disciplines. Paleontologists now work routinely with physicists, chemists, computer scientists, and engineers to address questions no single field could answer independently. International partnerships serve as models for scientific collaboration, transcending political boundaries and cultural differences. Research networks create global communities of scientists united by common interests and shared goals for understanding Earth's history. Educational innovations transform how Earth science is taught at all levels. Interactive museum exhibits, online simulations, and field-based learning experiences make paleontology more accessible and engaging for students of diverse backgrounds and ages. Public engagement strategies build broader support for scientific research and environmental conservation. Social media campaigns, documentary films, and popular publications bring discoveries to audiences far beyond traditional scientific communities. Policy implications extend into climate change mitigation, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable resource management. Deep time perspectives inform contemporary environmental decision-making in ways that purely modern data cannot provide. Philosophical questions challenge understanding of life's place in the universe and the nature of evolutionary change. These ancient worlds remind us that current ecosystems represent just one brief moment in vast sweeps of evolutionary experimentation. Future research directions promise spectacular discoveries as new field sites are explored, innovative analytical techniques developed, and theoretical frameworks refined to address increasingly sophisticated questions about ancient life and its modern relevance. Legacy considerations ensure that current research efforts influence scientific understanding for generations to come. Specimens, data, and insights generated today provide foundations for future researchers who will ask questions we cannot yet imagine. Inspirational value of these ancient ecosystems reminds us that life on Earth has always been characterized by incredible creativity, resilience, and innovation. Creatures that inhabited prehistoric landscapes faced challenges and opportunities both similar to and dramatically different from those confronting modern species. Conservation applications demonstrate that studying the past is crucial for preparing for the future. Stories preserved in ancient rocks provide guidance for navigating environmental challenges that lie ahead while maintaining the biological diversity that makes our planet unique. Collaborative networks represent new models for conducting science in an increasingly connected world. International partnerships demonstrate how shared curiosity and common goals overcome political and cultural barriers to create truly global research communities. Educational impacts continue growing as new technologies make ancient worlds more accessible to students and general public. Virtual field trips, augmented reality applications, and interactive simulations create opportunities for experiencing paleontology in previously unimaginable ways. Cultural significance extends far beyond scientific value. These fossils become symbols of deep time, evolutionary change, and incredible diversity of life on Earth. They inspire wonder, curiosity, and respect for natural world in ways that connect science to broader human values. Preservation challenges require innovative solutions, balancing scientific research with environmental protection and community needs. Lessons learned from managing these paleontological resources inform conservation strategies for other scientifically important landscapes worldwide. Technological revolutions transforming research will undoubtedly lead to discoveries we cannot currently anticipate. Each new analytical technique and theoretical framework opens possibilities for understanding aspects of ancient life previously inaccessible to scientific investigation. The molecular revolution in paleontology continues revealing hidden aspects of ancient biology that were completely invisible to earlier researchers. Protein fragments surviving in fossils provide direct evidence of physiological processes that operated millions of years ago. Isotopic signatures in organic molecules function as chemical fossils that record environmental conditions with remarkable precision. These molecular thermometers and chemical calendars provide detailed information about ancient climates and seasonal cycles. Lipid biomarkers preserved in sedimentary rocks reveal the presence of specific organisms that rarely fossilize completely. These molecular fossils greatly expand our understanding of ancient biodiversity beyond what skeletal remains alone can provide. Pigment molecules surviving fossilization allow reconstruction of actual colors and patterns that adorn these ancient creatures. These discoveries revolutionize understanding of visual communication and display behaviors in prehistoric ecosystems. The preservation of organic compounds in exceptional specimens opens entirely new research avenues that were unimaginable just decades ago. Each molecular discovery provides insights into biological processes that complement and enhance traditional morphological studies. Biomechanical modeling using finite element analysis reveals how ancient structures functioned under the stresses of daily life. These engineering approaches provide quantitative insights into feeding behaviors, locomotion strategies, and defensive capabilities. Computational fluid dynamic studies of skull shapes reveal how air and water flow patterns influence sensory capabilities and feeding efficiency. These analyses provide functional interpretations of morphological features that might otherwise seem purely ornamental. Stress analysis of skeletal elements reveals the mechanical limits that constrained behavior and ecology in these ancient creatures. Understanding these physical constraints helps explain why certain evolutionary solutions emerged while others remained unexplored. The integration of multiple analytical approaches creates comprehensive pictures of ancient life that far exceed what any single method could provide. Combining morphological, geochemical, and biomechanical data produces holistic reconstructions of prehistoric biology. Advanced imaging technologies allow non-destructive analysis of rare and valuable specimens. These methods preserve irreplaceable fossils while revealing internal structures and compositional details that were previously accessible only through destructive sampling. Synchrotron radiation analysis provides atomic-level resolution of fossil preservation processes and original tissue chemistry. These high-energy techniques reveal details of biomineralization and organic preservation that inform both paleobiology and material science. Neutron tomography penetrates dense rock matrices to reveal fossil details invisible to other imaging methods. This technology allows three-dimensional reconstruction of specimens still embedded in their original rock contexts. Electron microscopy studies of fossil surfaces reveal cellular structures and tissue organization preserved at nanometer scales. These ultrastructural details provide direct evidence of ancient physiological processes and developmental patterns. X-ray fluorescence mapping reveals elemental distributions that reflect original biological chemistry and post-mortem alteration processes. These chemical maps help distinguish original biological signals from later geological modifications. Mass spectrometry analysis of fossil extracts identifies specific organic molecules that survived diagenetic processes. These molecular identifications provide direct evidence of ancient biochemistry and metabolic pathways. The development of new analytical protocols specifically designed for ancient specimens minimizes sample destruction while maximizing information recovery. These optimized methods allow extraction of multiple types of data from single precious samples. Quality control procedures ensure that analytical results reflect original biological signals rather than contamination or laboratory artifacts. These protocols are essential for maintaining scientific credibility in studies of ancient organic molecules. Calibration studies using modern specimens help interpret ancient data by establishing relationships between chemical signals and biological processes. These actualistic approaches provide interpretive frameworks for paleobiological reconstructions. Statistical analysis methods designed for paleontological data handle the unique challenges posed by incomplete preservation and sampling biases. These specialized approaches extract maximum information from inherently limited ancient data sets. Database integration allows comparison of results across different specimens, localities, and time periods. These comprehensive data sets reveal patterns and trends that would be invisible in smaller, isolated studies. Reproducibility standards ensure that important discoveries can be verified through independent analysis. These quality assurance measures maintain scientific rigor while building confidence in paleobiological interpretations. Collaborative protocols facilitate data sharing and methodological standardization across research groups worldwide. These cooperative approaches accelerate progress while ensuring that important discoveries receive appropriate validation. The training of new researchers in these advanced techniques requires specialized educational programs that combine traditional paleontology with cutting-edge analytical chemistry. These interdisciplinary training opportunities prepare the next generation of paleobiologists. Equipment sharing networks allow researchers at smaller institutions to access expensive analytical facilities. These collaborative arrangements democratize advanced paleontological research while maximizing utilization of costly instrumentation. Funding strategies that support long-term research programs are essential for paleobiological projects that require years of specimen preparation and analysis. These sustained investments are necessary for major discoveries that cannot be rushed. International cooperation agreements facilitate specimen exchange and collaborative research across national boundaries. These diplomatic arrangements are crucial for studying fossils that span multiple countries and geological formations. Ethical guidelines for destructive sampling ensure that irreplaceable specimens are used responsibly for maximum scientific benefit. These protocols balance research needs with conservation responsibilities for future generations. Legal frameworks governing fossil ownership and research permissions must evolve to accommodate new analytical capabilities and international collaboration requirements. These regulatory adaptations are necessary for continued progress in paleobiological research. The economic value of paleobiological research extends far beyond academic institutions through applications in biotechnology, materials science, and environmental monitoring. These practical applications help justify continued investment in fundamental research. Intellectual property considerations become increasingly complex as paleobiological discoveries lead to technological innovations and commercial applications. These legal challenges require careful navigation to protect both scientific and commercial interests. Public communication strategies must evolve to explain increasingly sophisticated research methods and their implications for understanding ancient life. These outreach efforts are essential for maintaining public support for paleobiological research. Educational curriculum development incorporating new analytical methods prepares students for careers in modern paleobiology. These updated programs ensure that future researchers have the skills necessary for continued advancement in the field. The philosophical implications of molecular paleobiology challenge traditional boundaries between biology and geology, while raising new questions about the nature of life and its preservation over geological time. As analytical capabilities continue advancing, the boundary between possible and impossible research questions continues shifting toward previously unimaginable investigations of ancient life and its modern relevance. The integration of paleobiological discoveries with contemporary biological research creates new opportunities for understanding